It is 6 p.m. Good evening, everyone. I am opening the April 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Rutland Conservation Commission. Present in the room, Jared Gentilucci, Glenda Williamson, Skip Clark, Joe Delaquella, and Tim Keenan. Present remotely, Peter Crane and Melissa Danza. Our ever so helpful staff, Tamika Murphy, is in the back there. I see her. Welcome, one and all. We are being recorded for later playback on Rutland Cable Television. We're on Zoom, obviously. We're live streamed. We'll be available on via video on demand and YouTube in a day or so. Let us here. Why don't I share my screen like I'm supposed to? Hey, is that working?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, just a second. I'll tweak this so I can see things correctly. There we go. Okay. Starting with the meeting minutes of March 19th.
Motion to approve as written. Second.
Discussion, corrections, comments.
I do have one comment. I was not here, but apparently I made a motion. Miles Road, there was a motion made to continue the public hearing. It says it was me, but it was definitely not me.
Guys, I'll go back and figure out who it was.
Yeah, I don't know who it was. I can't remember.
I think that was Skip.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you. I will fix that.
No problem.
So we have a motion. Any other comments or questions or corrections? Roll call vote, starting at the table. Jared, please.
Gentilucci abstain.
Williamson, aye.
Clock eye.
Delaquilla, aye.
Keenan, aye.
Dan's aye.
Crane, aye. Moving on, we have an RDA for 20 Laurelwood. This was this had the right notice, Tamika?
Yes. Yep. It's been published in the paper.
Great. This is a small shed. Well, a shed. Maybe
Two
it's not
sheds.
small.
We did that.
Oh, you're right. It's two sheds. I forgot. There's one up here, and there's one down there. The question about where the wetland is this the edge of the wetland, or is this the edge of the buffer?
It's like a stream that runs through.
That's the stream. Okay, thank you.
I caught this on a building permit just so everyone has a quick background.
Cool. Let's start with this. Is there anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, they are here.
Okay. Does anyone on the commission have questions on this?
How far is it from the stream?
It's about 10 feet.
Oh, looks further away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Says 9 feet right here.
Yeah.
This is the second there are two sheds, as they said.
And the stream comes from, it's culverted across the road. I told you, one brain cell. It's, wooded where it is. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if the homeowners are there, I think where the areas are going to be going, there's not going to be any additional tree clearing. It was just the placement of the sheds and existing kind of long lawn edge of driveway area.
That's correct.
Okay.
But that one was less than the 50 feet, unfortunately.
Right. Other questions or comments from the commission?
No.
I will ask, does anyone on the commission think this should not be an RDA? I'm not hearing anybody say yes, so I'm going to assume that that's a no. Fine. So unless there are other questions, I will entertain a motion.
We've got somebody here in the audience wants a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
My name is Jean Kuchar. I live at 6 Oakwood Road, which is just several house lots down from that corner property. I've been there for 62 years, so I've seen a few changes. At one time, there was so much water that came underneath the road and went down where the property that now is 4 Oakwood Road to in front of my property, which is 6 Oakwood Road. There was an open brook there. Many years ago, a car went off the road there and could not get out. He tried to park, and he couldn't get out of there because he got sunk in the mud. At that point, the town had to pipe the brook, and now the brook that comes from this area of Laurelwood is a piped brook. My concern is that if we allow this to take place, it's going to disrupt what is now deemed wetlands in that part, and the town we may be up for more water than we already have in that area, and there may be problems for the town. I'll be
So
glad
my
to ask her
immediate
any
reaction
questions.
is these two sheds as described are not moving dirt. They aren't changing the topology of the land, which means that they should not be impacting any water flow at all.
However, they are going to be on land that has been impacted by that brook before that is wetlands. And it may increase the wetlands moving over more towards Oakwood Road.
I don't believe the placement of the shed can make that happen.
A 30-foot shed?
Yeah, it's
It's
nothing
surface mount.
more than an obstruction. Part of it depends upon the precise topology that's not really laid out here, but if the applicant can talk briefly about that.
Yeah, so,
I don't think they're 30-foot sheds
No.
either.
no, they're 12 by 16 sheds.
Right.
The plans that I got from the town clerk's office said 30 feet,
Yeah.
30 feet by 9 feet.
No,
So that's the distance setback. The 30 feet is the setback from the road, and the 9 foot is the setback from the approximate edge of the brook. That's not the size of the shed.
Well, that looked to be the size of the shed as I looked at the diagram.
So the diagram I think they're sharing on the screen right now, so that 30, it does have those lines, so it does almost look like it is creating a shed,
Yeah,
but they're the small rectangles to the left and the upper left.
Right. So this is the shed under the SF. And this is the other shed way up top. So,
that clears up a bit.
right. So that is not the shed.
Yes. So I hope that mitigates your concern, because I think that's a little bit different. Yeah, I would agree.
The impact of that, if that were all shed area there, would have been,
Would be different,
yes.
for sure.
Especially if it were immediately adjacent to the brook. Other questions?
Is there going to be any disturbance to the soil? What's your foundation or?
So I was gonna set it up on sonotubes with concrete, so it's going to the frost line, and that's about the only thing that I'll be doing. So we can set the post of the shed on some solid foundation, basically.
And it'll be up above ground?
Yes,
There'll be some clearance underneath?
Yep.
a little bit.
correct.
Then will there be ramps?
No.
No? Okay. So it won't be a drive-in shed then?
No,
Okay.
no, it's just so I can put some stuff away from clutter in my garage.
Anything else?
Do we just want to have a straw wattle on the back of that shed along the stream just while they're doing the sonotubes?
yeah, I would
I know
agree.
it's
Yep.
very minimal, but it's protection.
I would say yes.
All right, let's, again, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to issue a negative determination of applicability, that the work is in the buffer zone but will not impact the resource area, with the condition of the installation of erosion controls prior to the installation of the sonotubes.
Second.
That's a lot of words, Melissa. Good job.
I know,
You
sorry.
said you didn't have brain cells.
Melissa, is that reason number 3?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I trust you.
Do we have a second?
I seconded it.
You did. Sorry, didn't hear you. Other discussion? Roll call.
Chancelucci, aye.
Williamson, I.
Clock eye.
Keenan, aye.
Stanza I.
Crane, aye. We'll get that out in the paperwork to you. Tamika can tell you when it'll show up.
And I'll sign off on the building permit ASAP.
Thank you.
Tamika, will you just upload the determination when you're done to the building permit?
You got it.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have a request for emergency certification for the rail trail. Who would have thought this would come back? So I don't know if you all have read the letter from Quinn, who talks about basically a brief history and says why this was an emergency, why it was an emergency, why it was cleared, but now why it's actually an emergency. And he sent that off to DEP, and DEP responded saying, in January, the DEP did not anticipate this area would remain open without a culvert. Request for emergency certification should blah, 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 etc. But they do not, in fact, they are amenable to the emergency cert. I've said way back when that I thought this should still be an emergency cert, so there is, I doubt that anybody is surprised by me being supportive of this. I did not see an application in the folder, Tamika.
No, we did not do an application because we weren't sure how things were gonna play out with the timing.
Right, okay. But we think we are ready. I think we should issue this emergency cert right away. I'd like some more discussion before we just go ahead and do it because I said so.
So Peter, just so you know, Kevin is here.
Oh, hi, Kevin.
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
So
Why don't I give you a quick summary if it's helpful? All right. Kevin Quinn with Quinn Engineering, here on behalf of Wachusett Greenways. Scott Morrison, wetland scientist, is with me, and also Colleen Abrams is with me as well, the coordinator. The board granted an emergency certification for repair to the box culvert that passes under the rail trail. They did the work shortly after that, and when they exposed the box culvert, what they found was the thing was in complete disrepair. So the decision was to replace it. They opened up, removed the entire culvert, removed all the box, all that material, and the water was flowing freely through that excavation. There were DEP personnel on site at the time. DEP said, this is no longer an emergency, and they lifted the emergency certification. Well, so Colleen asked my firm and Scott to get involved, and in communication with DEP said, you can't just go back and get a certification that says, stick a pipe in the ground. They want to see a plan, and I understand that. So my office prepared a plan, we submitted it. Scott delineated the wetlands, and while Scott was looking at the site, he went out to the site, he contacted me and said, this is a dangerous place. This is a certain hazard to this. Frankly, I've been looking at it and saw water and stuff, but wasn't thinking about the public safety aspect of it. I went back out and I saw what he saw. Kids playing around there, adults on the rail trail who were passing around. I think they were trying to get around the excavation. It's a public safety issue. So we're asking for emergency certification now, not based on environmental considerations, but on the public safety aspect of it. We've got an excavation open. when I spoke to the DEP, they said, well, why don't you just go out there and stabilize the site and make it safe? Two reasons. One, I don't know what I'm gonna do to make that site safer. You still gotta have that water flowing through there. It's still a very open public area. And that would delay things. So I think in the interest of public, we think that the emergency certification is appropriate. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions board members may have.
So DEP didn't have an opportunity to provide comments because they don't have a notice of intent?
Good question. There is no notice of intent. There's only this emergency certification request, which was submitted in a letter format for me. DEP does have it, and I communicated with the section chief, Judith Schmitz, who said they would support this because of the public safety concern. The plan we submitted to you, let me talk about that briefly as well. That's a good thing to talk about. The box culvert that went through there, we understood was 4 by 2, 4 feet wide, 2 feet high. So we're proposing a 60-inch culvert, basically 5-foot diameter culvert, but we're gonna plant it an extra foot into the ground with substrate inside the pipe to have a natural floor. Nowadays, round pipes are not favorable for culverts. They want to have a flat surface for animals to get through. So we're gonna provide the substrate, a floor in the pipe, within the pipe, of just crushed stone material. It'll be 4 feet wide because the pipe is so large. So you're still gonna have a 4-foot wide conveyance for the stormwater. In other words, it's gonna be at the same elevation, and you'll have the same width of a flow area at the low flows that happens right now. One of the things we're trying to do is not alter or impact the flow of water through there over what existed previously. But we wanna make sure there's adequate capacity, so we're not backing up. The reason we're here is that the box culvert is getting backed up and Miles Road is getting flooded. This culvert will operate similarly to the culvert that existed before, but it has more capacity at the higher flows. It's gonna get rid of the water more effectively, we believe.
So there was 2-foot embedment? Or
1
12?
foot.
1 foot
1 foot, yeah. What we're
embedment
gonna
for
do is-
60 is what percentage?
1/5. 1/5?
20%, yeah.
Yeah, 20%, yeah. It
Well,
basically.
20% of the height, what's the percent of the volume?
I don't know. I don't know. But you have a much greater volume area with the culvert than you had previously with the old box culvert. And you have
Right, so
at the
this-
higher
my question is actually related to how does the size of the opening relate to the size of the opening coming into that small space where the water feeds under the road and into that space just before the culvert that it flows through this culvert you're replacing.
Yeah, there's a large elliptical box, metal culvert, corrugated metal pipe culvert under Miles Road. It conveys a lot of flow. It's wider, but it's shallower than this culvert here is. If that's helpful to you.
Yeah,
It
Peter, I
is.
don't think there's any reduction in flow because he's got a 60-inch culvert going in. He's gonna block a foot of it. So he's still got 4 feet high and 4
Exactly.
feet wide at the bottom,
Exactly, yeah.
you know, and just that
It's
taper.
4 wide in the bottom, it'll be 5 wide in the center.
That's correct. That's correct. When you come up a little bit, you have 5 feet of flow area.
Yeah.
This will certainly not restrict flow.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
certainly
I-
wouldn't expect it to be any less.
Right.
Right, I'm just trying to get in my head if there's any possibility that if the culvert that feeds that space were to be maximized out, would the 5 foot wide, 4 foot high, tall culvert be adequate? That's what I just want to be sure of.
Well, here's one, if I may, one concern we have when we looked at this is, what we're trying to do here is ensure that we don't restrict the flow. We're trying to make sure we don't let the flow be restricted because we had flooding of Miles Road. But if we put in an enormous culvert, just something to talk about, 10-foot wide
Can I just
culvert.
ask a quick question?
Yes.
Have you run the calcs to see if this meets the stream water standards, because if it does, then I think that answers our question.
Actually, stream crossing standards aren't actually what we're addressing, but we did address the standards. Scott submitted an analysis that shows the compliance with section 10.538.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is what, like, was DEP's main concern. So as long as you feel comfortable that in the subsequent notice of intent that would come after the emergency certification, that you can meet the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act and stream crossing, you know, then the commission should feel comfortable conditioning that in their emergency cert, and we shouldn't have an issue, I think, to put it simply.
Yeah, it certainly meets those standards. Go ahead, Scott.
And the intent was to provide that information now before the culvert gets installed, so that when it comes time to file the notice of intent, we've already addressed that.
We had to. We had to do
So
it.
I
We had
think,
to do
yeah,
it
as long
beforehand.
exactly. So I think as long as you're comfortable, you know, certifying and stating that you will meet the Wetlands Protection Act requirements, you know, for this project as required, you know, after the emergency cert, then you would meet the openness ratio and the volume that I think we're concerned about and what DEP was getting to.
Yes, and obviously, we had to do that because we're putting a pipe in the ground. I can't retroactively fix it if
Exactly.
we weren't in compliance.
So I just, want to get that very clearly
Yep.
on the record then, so the commission can feel a little bit more comfortable, because I know this area has been a concern, and I would also agree personally with the public safety aspect. I was actually thinking over the weekend, what if, you know, they did need to get an ambulance over it, or something were to sporadically happen that's just not available right now.
One other thing I'd like to see added to that is that section of roadway there that we talk about is not Miles Road technically.
Yeah,
It's Millbrook.
yes.
So how it became Miles was convention, I guess, more than anything else. But in the town records, it's actually known as Millbrook.
We should identify that as Millbrook.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to do that.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
I had a question on the substrate in the 60-inch. Is that gonna be just allowed to like naturally
Yeah. Good.
settle at the bottom of the pipe? You're not gonna actually put any materials in the pipe, right?
No, we are. We are.
We
That's a
are.
good question. The substrate that goes in there, we had quite a bit of discussion about this. We're calling for crushed stone up to 5-inch diameter, broken stone. And the reason for that is the flow through the culvert moves. It moves fast. We started out thinking 3/4 inch or 3-inch stone, and we did some numbers, and 3 inches is not even big enough. You have to have bulky stone to hold. The voids in that stone will fill in with sediment pretty rapidly, so the flow will, in very short order, be pretty natural. But we needed to put something in there that's bulky, that will hold during
Right.
peak storms.
Is
Are you
this so
doing
it's a
anything on the
smooth
ends to-
culvert?
To hold it in?
I'm sorry?
Are you doing anything on the ends of the culvert to hold it in?
We aren't, except that the pipe is planted down into the ground. So that
so it's just gonna be
substrate,
the-
it's gonna match right in
Okay.
to the ground, so it won't have anywhere to go.
What about what do you have to do? What's the standard? The 2-year storm or the 10 or the 100 on these?
That's a
Like
good
what if,
question.
just say there was a 100-year storm.
Well, this is interesting because if that pipe were to fill up, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a secondary pipe further down, so that if this were to clog, say Beaver's activity blocked it, or there was some
Yeah.
blockage, there's a secondary pipe that water would flow into the pond through.
That's it.
Oh.
Well, yes and no. I'll give you one guess where all the flooding was on Miles Road. It was that second culvert.
It was.
So yes, it is a second, but
But it doesn't get the job done.
yeah, now at the time, the culvert under Miles Road, the one that's the inlet into this area, was purposely blocked, which just exacerbated the problem. So I agree that there is a secondary culvert. I'm just not sure that the altitude difference is high enough to be significant to stop flooding on Miles Road down the road that 150, 200 feet. But that's not a problem for this, don't get me wrong.
No. And this will be much easier to keep clean as opposed to that 4x2 pipe
Yeah,
that was
right.
susceptible to being clogged quite easily.
DEP told us they're not worried about bears getting through this culvert. I said, well, that's a big enough culvert, it'll pass a bear too. Not a moose, but a bear.
Wildlife movement, you got that.
Who at DEP lifted the emergency cert?
Who I communicated with was Judith Schmitz, she's the section chief.
Judy did
Judy
that?
Schmitz, and Mia.
Kind
It's
of
all-
Yeah, I
strange.
think Mia did the actual lifting over our objections.
Was that related to the 30-day time period to complete the work?
No, they said that once the pipe was, once that it was excavated and water was flowing, it'll leave the issue. And they said you don't need the emergency cert.
Regardless
And
of
my argument was,
People's dogs and
well,
kids.
half the work's done. You can't stop midway.
Yeah, that's.
No, and
And-
I gotta tell you, I saw, there was water flowing through there, and I saw erosion right in front of my eyes. We spend our lives trying to prevent erosion, and here's kind of an erosive situation
And
happening.
I was
We saw
out,
that when we went down, when Peter and I went down, we saw that, it was running right out.
and I went to flag it and I was like,
Yes.
like somebody's gonna hear about this because there's kids around.
Yeah.
It was just, made me real nervous.
No one sees Scott Morrison again for years. He's down in there. What happened to Scott?
We lost him.
Isn't it strange?
It's a scary cliff if you go to that edge. It's not a pleasant experience.
No. It's a good fishing spot. Was a good fishing spot.
Will be a good fishing spot.
Will be better, hopefully again.
Soon.
Well, the emergency certification, the indication is that the DEP is okay with it
Yes.
if we grant it?
Yes, Judith Schmitz said they have no objection to it.
And then is
And
that,
she submitted that in an email to
okay.
Congress.
Is there a time frame that's good for?
30 days, 60 days?
For when it's completed, I cannot say, but for when it starts, as soon as possible, and we've asked the contractor to return.
I was gonna say, do we have all the
If this is
material?
favorably
Yeah.
granted tonight.
He has all the materials and everything?
I think the pipe is on hand, the pipe is on hand.
Scott is ready to deliver the last, we needed one more section of pipe, and they'll deliver it this, end of this week, if we say, okay. We have the rest of the materials, we'll probably have to buy some more processed gravel. We definitely.
Anything with long lead time, there's nothing with long lead time.
Correct.
Seems to me like it just needs to
I
get
just say
done.
exactly how long it will take him to complete it, but the contractor is very aware that we want it fully stabilized ASAP.
You talked about dewatering. Well, I mean, recommended usually if you can, it's to do the work at low flow.
Yep.
But so your dewatering is, are you gonna have cofferdams up and down?
What's gonna happen, the contractor's what he's gonna do is sandbag and pump around. We didn't put that on the plan, cause I'm not up to dictating means and methods to a contractor, but he's gonna sandbag and pump around. He's, Bob Salvador is a contractor,
Oh, good.
good guy, knows his stuff.
So it's
knows
just getting diverted through a
Correct.
temporary
Yes,
pipe?
yep.
It's the same contractor who did the emergency initial work, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because they did, yeah, a really good job when they did need to stop, water through flowing. So I think if we follow the same process, my concerns are addressed.
So just a sandbag statement that we have a really excellent resource with the existing dam under the road to sandbag, existing culvert, I should say, but to dam that, to sandbag it there, to hold the water, to make a really decent dry work area. And in addition, the contractor had already said he's going for a pump. So he really wants it to be fully dry, which hopefully can happen a little more readily after this next storm. But that's the intent
3-inch
is to-
rainstorms just
Kill us, kill us, yeah.
every week, like it's ridiculous. There's no natural heritage, right, Scott? Anything like that crazy out there?
Nope. It's actually the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife Property.
Is it?
Is
And they've been supportive of the project. They stated that at one of our meetings.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Salvador?
Make a motion to grant the emergency cert.
Second.
Any final discussion? Melissa, do we need to specify anything about the emergency cert, or is it just as presented?
As presented.
There you go.
But we do need to, can you just let us know the start date?
Sure.
Because we have to put that on the form.
Melissa, I have a quick question. Does the form automatically defaults to 30 days from the date of issue, correct?
Correct, yeah. If we need to extend it because there's a delay in the start, then that's something we can do at a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't, do we have to put the start date on like right now? Can we just put it, say they don't want to do the work?
It's not,
do it.
yeah, I don't think it's a start date. It's just, it's like Tamika said, it's just about, it starts 30 days upon issuance.
Right.
Oh,
I
once
think what
it's
you're
issued,
thinking.
okay,
Right.
start
30 days
within that,
after commencement,
that
yeah.
30-day period,
Yeah.
okay.
So if at next meeting or, another meeting, if for some unforeseeable, thing, we need to extend it, that's
Right.
not an issue I have.
You'll advise us on that.
We will.
Yes.
30 days is before our next meeting. Is before our first main meeting. So if we're going to extend it, hopefully we'll have information that we need to for our next meeting
Our
in
next
2
meeting-
weeks.
No, our next meeting is April 16th. And then after that, we don't meet again until May 7th,
May
just
7th.
to keep in mind,
That should
yeah.
work fine though, because if we have a 30-day window, say it takes Greenways a week, 2 weeks to get a contractor out there. If our 30-day window starts then, that'll get us well into the next meeting. And I would think if we needed relief, if we needed to come back, that would be, the timing would be good.
Well, it starts upon issuance.
Yeah, so it's
So I think we
30
wanna
days from
coordinate
today.
issuance with the
You can't
start.
set a 30-day time to begin.
No. Why don't we just coordinate with Tamika to have it issued essentially the day before you plan to start work,
That's kind of what I was thinking, yeah. We do that?
if that's possible.
Can conservation do that?
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Gentilucci, aye.
Williams, aye.
Clock eye.
Why?
Keenan, I.
Danza, aye.
Crane, aye. There you go. You have your emergency cert.
Terrific. Thank you.
Which will happen sometime
Thanks,
soon.
Kevin, nice job.
Hopefully the second
Nice
time's
seeing you.
the
Good seeing you, Scott.
I know, he's a
Thank you guys
stranger in
for
this
doing
process.
that.
I know.
This is Daphne, how are you? Nice to see you.
All right, we have a request for a certificate of compliance at 20 Walnut Street. We were all supposed to go out. Anybody do that?
Yep.
I did.
I drove by.
Looks good.
Looks good. Okay.
Yeah.
You could-
Any
Looks like
reason
it's been
to?
there.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
I said, looks like it's been there.
Yep.
Yep. Does anyone have a reason that we should not issue the COC?
See, Kevin.
I actually am here for the applicant. I just wanted you guys to know that I'm on the meeting. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, for the record, through the chair, Attorney Megan Roach, representing Karen, Jimmy, and I apologize for not attending in person. I don't feel that great. I didn't want everyone giving me the side eye thinking I have COVID, so I decided to stay home. And I will fully disclose I do most of my work in the zoning board area, so I'm not very familiar with conservation. But these clients have moved out of state, and Tamika, who I know you guys already know, but is absolutely fabulous and wonderful, did say it always is nice for someone to be on the meeting in case there was questions or anything. So I'm just sitting here, but I will leave it to the experts. But if you guys have questions, please let me know.
Okay. Thank you very much. Questions or comments from the commission?
Was
Other
this
than looks good and it's been there.
replacement or a septic replacement or what?
I'm sorry, was that Glenda? I only heard half of it.
I wasn't around when the permit was sent in. What was the work specifically for on this one?
That was built whole house.
Was this building the house in
Yeah, this is
2009?
the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, we issued that before. In fact, I'm the only one left on the board that issued that.
2009?
Yeah.
And then a COC was just never issued?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
It's not the oldest one we've had, right?
No, it's not the oldest.
Definitely not.
That was back in the day when the banks were throwing money at people to buy houses and they didn't do the due diligence to make sure all the paperwork was right.
Yes,
Um,
and my client, Karen Jermaine, the applicant, was the owner of the property for a long time. She bought it from the Bernard Family Realty Trust and built the house, and then they have just recently, in the last few days, sold it to their daughter. So my advice was let's just get this done now. I've spent an crazy amount of time chasing order of conditions after the fact. So we wanted to just get on the agenda and get this taken care of quickly as possible.
All right. Did we have a motion yet?
I'll move to issue a COC.
Second,
Other discussion? Roll call.
Chancelucci, aye.
Williamson, I.
Clock eye.
Delco, aye.
Keenan, I.
Danza, I.
Crane, aye. COC is done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, you
Thank you
too.
for joining.
Okay, I will now continue the hearing for the notice of intent for Brian Rishala, Lot 2 on Miles Road. This is the same, this is the awful version of the PDF, but it's one we've seen. The good news is DEP gave us a number, or them a number. Okay, notes. So we should give a COC for this OOC, for this, prior to issuing this OOC. That makes sense.
Peter, if I may, should we also do a COC because Brian at the time did orders for 2 lots, right? Didn't we do lots 1 and 2?
Correct. Yes.
So we should probably do a COC for both at the same time?
Were the orders for both lots simultaneously? I don't remember
Yes.
anymore.
Yep, they were at
Oh,
the same time.
So can we have a single COC to cover both lots, or do we need
Oh, no.
separate COCs?
I'm sorry, I meant separate COCs, but just taking care of them both at the same time, like at the same
Yes.
meeting.
Yes. In fact, since we've been out and visited the site recently, I would entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for lots 2 and, is it 1 and, hold on,
1
I
and
gotta go
2.
back.
It's 1 and 2.
Correct. It is 1 and 2, okay. For those 2 lots,
And it
either
would be,
singly or separately.
and they would be invalid COCs technically because they're not built yet.
Okay.
Correct. They're the work hasn't been done COCs.
Oh, were you asking for a motion? If so, so moved.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
And a second, awesome. Other discussion? Roll call.
Chancelucci, aye.
Williamson, I.
Clock eye.
Delco, aye.
I'm not really familiar with everything. I'm just gonna abstain. Keenan abstain.
That's fine.
Danza, I.
Crane, aye.
Always do what you feel is most comfortable.
That's right. So DEP comments. Commission may request supporting BWV documentation which was not provided with the NOI. Commission should verify that the wetland lines are consistent with the delineation and the wetland flags are still present. Well, we've seen the wetland flags. The wetland flags, which have not moved, were so in the same positions as they were before, and before they were in the same. They seemed correct to us, those those of us lay people who went out and looked at them. Though I suppose it's possible the wetlands moved, but it hasn't been that long, has it? 2 years?
No.
So does.
All we
does
have
the-
to do,
is-
Peter, is decide that we're happy with the existing.
I agree. So I was gonna ask, do we want any more supporting BWB documentation? Does the commission want that?
No, not necessary.
General.
It's on a gradient of, it's on a downslope. And I really don't think the wetlands climb the hill.
There you go, working on physics again, Joe.
I know. It's tough to break away from it.
Commission may want the applicant to demonstrate how the limit of work as proposed in close proximity to the bordering vegetated wetland could be performed while still providing protection of the beaver in perpetuity. Conditioning additional plantings or the preservation of a vegetated buffer, setbacks, etc. Could potential adverse impacts to BVW be avoided by considering the addition of retaining walls for their upgradient to reduce additional grading and land clearing adjacent to the wetland? So they want to move this wall this way.
How far,
They don't say.
what's the buffer between the wetland and the wall, do we know?
I think it's 10 feet or less. Or maybe 15, that's our
I think I remember at a previous discussion it was 15 at the closest point right here.
It's probably 15, yeah.
So that's an existing stone wall?
No.
No, that's
it's-
proposed.
Yeah.
And you need that there because of the grading, right?
Right. This is as much a retaining wall as anything.
So DEP is suggesting make a steeper retaining wall to limit the grading and have a steeper drop off because it pushes it farther from the wetland.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it'll probably be fine as long as they put erosion controls in.
Yes.
Because I think they're saying it would make the limit of work even closer up, farther away than it was now. So it would take away an entire area to be disturbed.
Oh. Is it currently vegetated?
Yes.
Like trees, mature trees and stuff?
Yes.
Yes.
What's the grading?
I really don't see that much gain there.
Well, let me ask a question. How tall?
Those are 2-footers.
How tall is this sort of retaining wall going to be as currently proposed?
We were just gonna take what boulders were on the lot, as my engineer had said, and just go up 18 inches, 2 feet, so to speak, with the erosion control. Wasn't gonna be anything super fancy, but
Right. So
anything had to be brought in, we would do that, but
Peter, it looks like it's about 1 to 2 feet. I got the other plan up on my screen that's clear and easier to read, and I'm seeing 2 feet max for the height of that wall.
right. Okay.
There's no limit of work.
Because one of the other considerations is that if we were to pull it back, it would necessarily get taller. And once you get beyond a certain threshold, I believe the threshold's 4 feet, but I don't know that for certain, that you required engineered drawings before you could do the wall, which just adds more to the cost of the project with what may not be an improvement to wetland protection. I mean, going back to what Joe said about there's about minimal value.
Well, if you're worried about like future encroachment or whatever, you could always require like a permanent boulder demarcation or something. Like above and below the wall. But as long as there's a clear limit of work. on the site.
Mm-hmm.
I would be okay with it as long as they don't go like right up to the edge of the wetland.
Right.
Maybe have the erosion controls be the limit of work. And have an inspection.
Based on this other comment from DEP, what does the commission think about additional plantings?
You got enough stuff growing there as it is.
As long as all the stuff doesn't get destroyed, then I wouldn't see any need be to add.
Right.
But if it got destroyed, then yes, we probably should put something back there, whatever.
Well,
it
I
might
mean,
be.
technically they are destroying it because they're clearing it, so I get their point. I mean, I'm always an advocate to the additional native plants. Even just a couple is better than nothing.
I think that'll all occur when they do the landscape, the finished landscape.
Well,
I've never seen truthfully, I've never seen a landscaper put in native plants
right.
without it being required.
Well, what DEP was calling for you're adding the word native, DEP didn't
I
add
am,
that.
yep.
And frankly, I would have expected them to mean native plantings anyway, but
Because that's the only thing that would benefit the wildlife. Well, not the only thing, but like that is the primary goal.
Where would the plantings go? Like on the graded slope?
well, that's
Not
what
anywhere.
that's what I'm wondering about too, because go ahead.
There's
Melissa.
shrubs and flowering, bushes, trees, etc., that you can use as landscaping. So whether it's, just trees along the top of the slope or shrubs or, because they can even use that as their little bit of barrier because, they might not want to look at this giant slope or protect kids or whatnot. So sometimes it's actually used as a benefit and it kind of does double duty.
Well, you just put that in the order of conditions, right?
Yep.
Well, that's what we would do if the commission's of that opinion or that we should.
Have any problem with that, Brian?
No, not a big deal.
I mean, it's just that it's really close to the boundary and they're gonna be taking a good bit of vegetation out. So I think it's reasonable to.
None of that's gonna be really touched. That slope there is not gonna be.
Well, the slope's all new. I mean, it doesn't precisely align with what's there now, according to the plan anyway. And so my other question is, and maybe I've asked this before, I don't remember anymore. What's going to stabilize this slope in the back?
I was under the impression it would be that erosion control barrier.
Well, no. I mean, during construction.
Yeah, is it going to be loam and seeded or is it going to be riprap? I'm assuming it's just going to be grass.
Correct. Yeah, we're gonna loam that. Yes.
Okay. We're gonna loam it. All right. Loam and seed. Yep. Okay.
Do you usually hydro seed?
Yes. Can. Sure.
Because we can even condition they hydro seed it after they've done loaming, final grades.
I'm fine with that if we think it's appropriate. So given loam and seed, are we going to request how specific, are we going to request plants and how specific will our request be beyond native?
I'd say we should specify at least a minimum number, and it doesn't have to be crazy. Even 5 is in my opinion, if as long as they're like 5 shrubs, you know, and not just plugs of something, that's a reasonable request.
So 5 shrubs along this line, assuming people can see,
Or they can leave it up to their
or
discretion.
anywhere they want. Okay, fine.
And, you know, as long as they're installed and on the as-built, you know, and they survive in perpetuity is the one condition we should also probably put in there.
Hmm.
So if they die, they're replaced in kind or with another similar size or species. It has to be native.
So while we're at it, are there any other conditions we should think about for this project?
Is the area of planting the entire slope or just in front of the retaining wall?
Everybody see the contours.
So the entire distance of the grading
Right.
in the lot, within the lot?
Mhm.
So what's the area?
Oof.
You know what I mean? Like, would 5 shrubs, like what's the planting density? Does that make sense?
Well, they're not going to be, well, it all depends upon how they plant them, but
Are you just saying like how much we're requesting they cover?
Yeah, like, would 10 be better if they're gonna do the entire slopes? You know what I mean? Or just to specify a minimum number of
Yeah, that's what we were saying, doing a minimum.
10 or 20 or something. So this is just for this one, right?
So are we conditioning a minimum of 5 shrubs or? Just wanna make sure I'm clear.
well, Melissa suggested 5. Glenda's talking 10. So
Well,
what do we
I'm-
think?
I'm always, you know, up for more.
I
It's
just can't,
you know,
no, I just can't tell by looking at the plan how, if 5 would make sense based on the area. Like, what's the frontage on that lot?
So that's 22
150.
feet, 36.
150?
So in other words, you wanna know how far they plant, the shrubs should be planted apart. 5 feet apart, 10 feet apart?
Well, there's like standard specifications for like planting distance, but it's more the number, I think.
And also, to be clear, we're talking behind the house, not in front of the house, right?
Yep.
We're talking closer to the wetland, not farther away, right?
Right.
Should be, yes.
So he could, for example, place them all along just inside the ECBs at the limit of work.
technically, yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
And he might choose to plant them on the slope, or he may choose to plant some
Right.
in that
Because you
little.
could also do different
Yeah.
species based on their placement. So they should be appropriate, you know, for where they end up being placed.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think the final, maybe we condition, you know, final location and type, you know, shall be, you know, approved by us just prior to installation, just so there's that double check and we can say, yep, that makes sense. So that we don't have to, you know, we can condition it so it doesn't hold up this, but still have the ability to talk about the specifics of the planting to make sure they fit the space. But I think we should at least decide on a minimum number, you know, so it gives them something to go off of and it holds us, we're upfront about what we want and we don't kind of flip flop later.
Walking the job when you're ready, yep. Whatever you decide.
So what is the commission's desire on minimum number of plants?
10 sounds good.
I think
10 sounds good.
I think 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, there. I think that's a decision. Good.
Sounds good.
Any other conditions?
All right, so we talked about plants, hydro seeding at least the slope once it's final grades? Are we doing that the boulder wall shall be, do we want any, I think we've just been doing the boulder wall as the demarcation. We haven't been doing signage, right?
Usually, yes.
Okay,
It's,
so that,
especially with the boulder wall altogether like that.
yeah, so we can at least have just the finding of fact of the boulder wall is acting as the 15-foot, no touch and work shall not, that should be the final limit of work in perpetuity. I told you one brain cell, so, yeah, I think that was it.
So my other question is, do we want any other boulders placed periodically along this line or near that line, near the wetland line?
I would at least have, if we want more, I'd put it along the limit of work versus having them truck in a
Yeah.
boulder where they're not working.
Right, right.
We
Fair
don't
enough.
want them to disturb where they don't need to.
That's not,
Yeah,
yeah, that's gonna be
exactly.
harder than you think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Maybe in that point where it jogs back in, but as the grading starts, well, there and then like halfway in the middle.
Like
And that,
here.
yeah, that jog. Just one there and like one decent sized one.
What wetland flag would that be, Jared?
Over here?
Well, the wetland flags are way up
They're
here.
way back.
They're further back.
So where did you point to the?
So we're putting it at the limit of work.
Oh.
Maybe one here
Oh,
and
okay.
one
Yeah,
here.
it's like here-ish, here-ish.
Like across
and then you got
from-
the wall
okay.
there.
Okay,
Yeah, you're way outside the boat.
Yeah,
The,
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
across from 1718.
you're probably 50 feet away there.
Probably this is probably 25 from the nearest flag, maybe more.
I think it's more, a little more, but
Yeah.
yeah, 30-ish maybe. And then it gets a little
And this
further.
is much further away, so fine.
May I ask how you would like that written as a condition? Are we identifying it by wetland flags or distance in between?
Well, it's not at wetlands flags, it's at the limit of work.
Do we want to say near the lot line? I don't know if north,
Yeah,
I don't think north is up on this plan, but that near the adjacent to the lot line and then halfway between the lot line and the stone wall along the limit of work line, something like that.
Yes. Thank you, Jared.
How many?
Did we decide on just those two?
I'm good with that. I don't know if anyone else is.
I'm fine with that as a minimum.
Okay.
If they find lots and lots of rocks, lots of boulders, they can put more along there. We won't object.
Agreed.
I apologize. Do you mind repeating it one more time?
Yeah. So 2 boulders, minimum 2 boulders, one adjacent to the lot line and one halfway between the lot line and the boulder wall along the limit of work line.
It's a lot of lines.
Did I say that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that made sense.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a lot of words for what a picture could probably say better, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
Common problem.
so we have 3 conditions and 1 finding of fact, correct?
I think so.
Sounds
Will
right.
you, will you read them for sanity's sake, Tamika, or at least the highlight?
Bad
You don't have to read them word for word.
So 1 condition to loam and seed the and hydro seed the slope to stabilize it once it's at final grade. A minimum of 10 shrubs to be planted in perpetuity, and if it dies, to be replaced in kind with the same native species. The finding of fact is the boulder wall is acting as the 15-foot no touch and should be the final limit of work in perpetuity, and a minimum of 2 boulders, one adjacent to the lot line and the other halfway between the lot line and the boulder wall along the limit of work.
Tamika, along with the
Here's the
plans, we
boulder.
should have planned to be approved by the commission before installation.
Oh, yeah.
That what plan?
The planting plan.
The shrubs.
Jared, how big of a boulder you looking for?
Whatever you find out there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want anything-
Big enough to discourage people, is
It's
it?
hard, it's
Anything 20
The
feet or
bigger the
bigger.
better.
hard to predict what you're gonna find, but I'm sure you'll find
All right,
something.
yeah, me too.
Something that you can't easily pick up in.
There's
I'll
no,
say that.
there's no lack of them.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. Doesn't have to be like
I got you.
gigantic, but,
Understood.
you know.
But that's what you'll find.
Yeah.
Probably will.
If you run out of them, come on down and see me. I got a few you can dig out.
Right?
We got plenty more in town.
And just to confirm for the orders, the closest point to the wetlands is 15 feet?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
and, yeah. Submit the planting plan to the commission for approval. Prior to planting.
When you're ready to do the landscape, and just come in and tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, no
That
problem.
works.
No sweat.
So Brian, I think we've talked a lot about our special conditions. Do you have any comments or questions about any of them?
When can I start mowing the rest of the pucker brush?
That's a good question, because I don't know that you need to delay, because you're not starting construction, you're not, I don't know, Melissa, when, does he have to wait for
And then do I have to
the
get
appeal
a,
period?
the state gave me approval to remove that silt fence on my land. Do I need anybody down there before the neighbor across the street gives me a hard time, or?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, so once you at least wait for the order of conditions to be issued.
yeah,
Technically, there's a 21-day appeal period, but you know, you can work at your own risk essentially. Because there's always the ability for an abutter or the state to appeal within that 21 days, but you know, it's kind of at your own discretion. And then just get it recorded at the registry and send us the book and page, and you'll have to get the COCs we issued as well recorded at the registry as well against those other orders. And that'll satisfy DEP, at least for their comments, I think.
I'll help you, Brian. I'll send it all in an email
okay,
for you,
all
okay?
right, all right.
Don't worry.
Gotta close out the old ones
Tamika's
first.
gonna
Okay.
take
Yeah.
care of
I'll
you.
take care of it.
Sorry, I overwhelmed you.
No, I never heard of COC, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
Certificate of
Certificate of
compliance.
compliance.
Oh, okay.
It'll close out the old permit you got with us
Understood.
over 3 years ago.
Any reason not to close this hearing?
Yes, eventually.
Next year,
I'll make a motion to close.
next year.
Second,
Roll call.
Gentilucci, aye.
Williams and I.
clock eye.
Bill Clark.
Keenan, I.
Danza, aye.
Crane, aye. Motion to approve, please, the orders of condition for Lot 2 on Miles Road as we discussed.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion on that? Roll call.
Gentilucci, aye.
Williams and I.
Clock eye.
Bill Clark.
Keenan, I.
Danza, aye.
Crane, aye. Okay. Brian, you're off and running.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
You're
good night.
very welcome.
You too.
Bye, Brian.
Moving on, we have a request to use WPA funds for the conservation agent. I believe I saw Austin in the gallery of guests.
Good
So
evening.
please,
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
yes,
Evan Sawyer is here. And maybe we should move him up, because his is gonna be relatively quick. When,
if
just so we don't hold
ask-
him up, because discussion with Austin may take a little bit of time.
If you guys are if you, unless you're expecting a protracted thing, I do not mind.
No, it's all
My
right.
turn.
Go for it.
You sure?
Yeah.
If that is amenable to everybody else.
Please,
All right.
Mr. Sawyer, go right ahead.
So I did submit some documents with Tamika. I'll just give those forward for anybody to give a brief view to. And just thank you for your time tonight. Everybody appreciate you staying. And just to kind of refresh, the there was a comment that came in, I believe from Melissa, a little over a year ago regarding this property. And Jared and Melissa had an opportunity to walk it. Back then, we had a healthy discussion about some of the work that I had done there. And we had a discussion about kind of limits of the limitations of the wetlands. And kind of observed those going forth over the course of the last year. We haven't done any additional work over there. But I was planning on kind of doing a second round of work and wanted to make sure I put it before the commission, had an opportunity for you guys to discuss it and lay eyes on it before we did any work down there. But just regarding the discussion that was Melissa and Jared and I had last year, my understanding of it was, if we were away from the wetland, from kind of the delineated work area that we established last year, that was gonna be considered kind of a safe area to be working in. So the map and some of the photographs that I show that we have a little bit of an established cart road in there and a turnaround. We'd like to take down some of the damaged trees that are in the middle of that area. It's a pretty limited section, and again, the boundary is sort of already established by a previous cart road and turnaround. So we're gonna stay within that limit and just basically clear that area of damaged trees. And we will have to bring in some native gravel to reestablish that once we remove the stumps. This lot itself is a little bit low lying compared to all the neighboring lots. So the additional native fill there is really just to, prevent any sort of pooling of water or anything like that. Short of that, really, it's just gonna be a clear area. We're not anticipating building anything anytime soon. Just gonna be used for parking and some storage of some equipment.
I believe I remember the walk on this one.
Yeah, that's Peter, you're right. So my apologies, you were present for that first walk as well.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fine. I just, so what are we?
We've got a couple
This
of
is
walks.
required. So are you basically asking what's the right regulatory, permitting process for this, or what?
Just making sure, I think that I don't need to, place condition any other further kind of permitting or anything for this work. It's gonna occur primarily outside of any vegetated area or of the protection, the buffer area. A little bit of work just by nature, kind of where it lies is in the buffer area, but the majority of it is outside. So I've shown a markup on the map that does a pretty good, clear job of showing the canopy of the trees and sort of the established turnaround, and has a markup of those trees in the middle there that we'd like to remove. In essence, it's really just trying to create a little bit more clear area on the lot. There is definite wetlands on the right side of the property, but this is all favoring the left side. I would say the overlap to the buffer area is less than half of what we anticipate in terms of the overall work.
So I think if I remember correctly, we actually wanted you to come back in the spring because we needed to further address some of the possible fill that had happened in the wetland area. So my initial thought, and I do apologize, I have been away literally since yesterday, since our last meeting, so I haven't looked at what you submitted, but I have some kind of general concerns about that. Yeah, I guess I'll just start there.
Yeah, I think that what you're referencing, you did have concerns on, you had concerns at our last site meeting. I think I was able to kind of reiterate that with Joe and with Jared, that the area in question that we were looking at is sort of much closer and sort of behind the area that we're talking and discussing this evening.
Yeah, it's still the same lot though, so if there's a violation, we do still need to address that.
Joe and Jared, did you guys make it this weekend?
We did. Yeah.
Because I know Evan
It's an area
submitted an
about the size of this
RDA
room.
today, and I assume that came from the direction of you guys following your site visit?
That's what Joe and I talked about for what Evan's proposing to do. We thought an RDA would be appropriate, but we wanted to talk with the rest of the commission tonight about that too.
Okay.
Where is it in relation to the 100-foot buffer, the trees?
I would say, like I said,
That's the group right there.
it's probably about less than half, a little less than half are within the 100-foot. I would say half are well beyond, and you can see one of the photos there shows kind of how close it is to the backyard of the existing townhouses that are Fox Run there, on the side, right down by the mobile. So you can kind of see those in the background, give you a sense of kind of how close that is to the existing backyards. I don't recall, we did have a discussion when we had it over a year ago. I don't recall there being, a violation. But what I recall was that we maybe should have pulled a permit for some of that initial work that we did, and didn't do it. So that was sort of the appropriate channel for tonight, it seemed, was just to make sure that everything was above reproach, and we put it in front of you guys and made sure that I did the right things. I'm not doing this in sort of a traditional method and, not building everything sort of start to finish. It's just been, sort of slow-moving improvements on this particular lot, so I don't anticipate putting anything, here at any time soon. This is just sort of a small improvement to use what, minimal area we actually have on the lot.
Okay, I don't want to link these two issues, but I'll say them both because Melissa brought it up and I had forgotten about it. I'd forgotten about the fill on this property, or what we believe is fill on that property in the wetlands whenever that was done, and that's what she's talking about for violation.
Yeah, that was some wood chips that the tenant had put there. They haven't really moved or changed. They sort of settled in, and we thought it was most prudent. They kind of acted as a little bit of a, of a natural straw wattle in a way. So we combed them down and sort of left them there as opposed to augmenting it further. But once you guys pointed that out, we didn't further encroach on that area. I think that when they visited this weekend, they saw it to be in the same condition as it was over a year ago.
Right. So to Melissa's point, at some point, we're gonna have to deal with that violation. I'm not saying we have to deal with it today or this, or in relation even to this particular discussion, but it is something we should be talking about, as Melissa said, sometime in the spring after the snow's really gone. And
Right now is still a perfect time to do wetland delineations. It's spring.
right.
I think that was our next step that we required, was to have the areas looked at so we could determine what, the next steps would be. My personal recommendation would be to include it into this next, iteration or request. I think now is a prudent time to get both things addressed, but it might, if you're addressing both things, it might be a notice of intent versus an RDA.
Well, I'll just say this, the work is proposed is really relatively minor. Like I said, I'm not anticipating augmenting, the site really dramatically at all. Just wanna take down a dozen or so pretty damaged trees. Just, financially, in terms of the budget on this project, is really just to kind of use the small portion of the lot that's available. We're not trying to, and don't really have any budget to be doing construction on the lot. We're taking a couple of trees down. It's kind of an afternoon sort of affair as opposed to a full-blown construction project.
And I understand that. I think my concern last year was that the use of the lot was impacting the wetland resource areas. So that use did have to be permitted. Because using that path was expanding the road, and the wood chips that you've put, in my opinion, and again, I'm just one commissioner, have filled the wetland area. So the fact that they have remained there for an additional year, I think is also a concern, even though it has stabilized it. You're creating actually an unnatural fill to a wetland, even though it's material that came from the site.
Well, Melissa, I understand your point, but at the same time, leaving it there may have been the better choice.
Yeah, but
right now. So
yeah.
I don't want to ping him for not taking care of the fill with the necessary engineering effort that will be required for that.
Yeah, and again,
But
I mean, my apologies, I think Melissa's a little bit closer to the now. Phil keeps, I don't necessarily see it as Phil in terms of like it's, it is the wood chips from that lot in terms of some brush and material that kind of had fallen from the adjacent property along that small buffered vegetation strip that was, left a little bit exposed from the prior, the building of the townhouses on the other side of the property line, so whereas, it is, I guess technically speaking, Phil, but it is wood chip material that was really just to kind of make that lot safe and usable in terms of the downed trees that were present on it when I purchased it.
this is the first time I've used GIS since they updated it. Wow. I'm doing this on my computer, obviously.
Isn't that nice? It looks cool. Peter, I do also have the documentation that Evan brought in person tonight. I did upload to the SharePoint. It's just under the applications folder, it's not under tonight's folder.
Oh, okay. Let me.
Yeah, because I was planning for the RDA for the next meeting. So, but it's under applications.
Okay, give me another moment or two. 213, is that right?
Yep.
I was actually about to pull this thing up exactly. Oh, on GIS. Right, all the photos. How many trees are you talking about removing?
There's some fairly small, trees that I don't know that it's, a little bit at your discretion, but in terms of small to medium-sized trees, there's about a dozen, maybe 14. But they're pretty small. All of those in that count are, less, I would say, than 12-inch in diameter, so they're not very mature trees. Most of them, at least 50% of them, have major damage to them, broken tops. There's a couple that are leaning pretty badly, as you can see in the photos, and present a safety issue, just, kind of being on that site. You can see the heavy lean to a couple of those trees that have essentially uprooted from wind, so we want to take care of those from a safety perspective also.
Peter, something the pictures aren't telling you is that when Jared and I went down there, we're looking at an area just roughly a little bit bigger than this room we're sitting in, where the trees are located, and it's bounded by the cart path, driveway, not roadway, but whatever you want to call it.
I was going to say there is.
It's totally encapsulated by that.
Yeah, I don't have the map, unfortunately, and I can't. I mean, all I have is is the GIS, but
remember it was a circle down here.
Yeah.
The roadway.
Peter, go to
They're talking
the
about working
top
in the middle of
right
the circle.
of the GIS, and there's
Yep.
the thing called in the little toolbar, base maps. Go to that one.
The Google base map is the one that'll give you the best image.
Yeah, it's at the top.
Oh, base map, huh?
Yeah, and then go to local, and then I struggled with that today.
And it's, not that map, but the Google map actually shows a little bit more clearly my pictures, I don't know why they're not coming up as well, but they, you can see the canopy line kind of, and you can see the ring of the established cart road a little bit more clearly. And I apologize, Peter, it was the Google overlay map or base map that. One of those options actually just has a slightly clearer picture because the canopy is a little bit greener and you can see the backdrop of the cart path a little bit better.
I don't.
Go to others.
I think it's Esri, or the leftmost option there. I think the top, the combined, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you can see there how you can see the limits of sort of right in that. The only real kind of, obviously according to this map, what it shows is wetlands. But right in that bulbous area and underneath the 2.87, you can sort of see the left limit there and the right limit
Over
of.
here.
Yep, exactly. And right under your cursor there would be about the left limit, yeah, and then it rings around there. So that sort of is the established kind of cart road turnaround.
Right.
And right in, above your cursor is the trees in question. So in the area that Melissa's talking about is on the other side of the 2.87 acre reference,
Yes.
much
Yep.
more to the north.
Yep.
What is your goal? Like, why are you even worried about those damaged trees being there?
I'd like to use what of the lot I can use. And I don't, anticipate using it in a well-defined way right now that I could tell you, that I build on it or something like that. But at this point, we have this turnaround here area, and we'd like to, park some equipment there. In essence, this is is zone town center village, and we, want to. I don't think that this property is appropriate for mixed use, but we'd like to use it what we can of it.
Is the whole, I'm just having a trouble, understanding where the buffer is, the 100-foot buffer is.
Well, that's what I'm trying to draw here.
Is
I
it?
mean, I'm not drawing it exactly, but since this is 275 it's the property, it's not to the.
It's 98, that's degree, it's weird, Peter, you have to be careful. It's degrees on the bottom and feet on the top.
Oh, geez, you're right. That's 98 feet. So the edge of the property is within the buffer.
So it's pretty much the entire property is
Right.
jurisdictional.
Well, and so I don't know exactly, there is some flow of water that comes from the adjacent property that comes from a buried culvert from the Carcraft side of the property. And I don't know whether that's groundwater, I don't know. It comes from a culvert that I believe the state installed. And so that sort of is, that flow, whatever it is sort of to the south and to the west on this, if this was facing north, which I believe it is. That flow sort of follows the edge of the property line and sort of the bottom of the property line. And so that's, roughly what that wetland is showing, although I believe that's a little bit, particularly in the front, a little bit larger than what actually exists. That mapping or that, mapping of it there, that visualization.
Mm-hmm.
My thing that I'm thinking is just if he's gonna do a notice of intent eventually to use the property.
Well, this may be the use of the property as far as I ever use it. I am not, at this point, this is the 5-year plan. It's just to open it up a little bit in that central area. There's already access established on what is the right side according to this view that comes
Okay.
in off the road. And that access follows the property line all the way down to where, where the cursor is, where the area in question is. So really we have, some area at the front and some access to the back, and that's really is my hope and my use for it for the time being. I don't have any plans beyond that.
And I think my concern originally was that we didn't permit the initial use in terms of you did bring in fill that was within at least the buffer zone, which requires a permit from Conservation Commission. So I think what we had wanted was for a wetland delineation to be done to determine what the next steps would be. Whether you did fill a wetland but you did at least alter a buffer zone is kind of where my foundational kind of thoughts come from, is that all of this is kind of contingent upon the access that was gained by work that was not approved by the Concom.
Well, and I mean, you're saying access, but the area in question is right over the 2.87 acres, and that doesn't.
There was, but you did admit that there was some fill that was brought in to better improve the access, which was at least in the very least in the buffer zone, which requires a permit from conservation. So the additional kind of storage and use requires a permit. Yes, if it was just the trees, then maybe the RDA, but I still at least personally think that the commission needs to address the initial concern that we had, which is the continuing use of this property as well.
I'm in agreement. I've seen this so many times that people tell you, oh, we're just gonna, take the trees out and we're not really sure what we're gonna do, but then down the road, and then it becomes more and more layers of activity that just would be covered with an RDA doesn't make sense. And you have to take into consideration, like Melissa's saying, previous activities and impacts.
Yeah, I mean, our previous impact was really just to kind of be able to stand on the lot. It hadn't been improved for a good long while. So, we that was the goal, was to be able to stand on it and, get rid of those trees that had fallen and just were part of the non-use of the property. But at this point, I wouldn't be able to put anything more in front of you other than that I hope to clear it out and have it be a clear property. Right now, there's one truck parked on it, and that's all I would anticipate, so there's no real heavy equipment over there right now other than a tree truck that, who's the tenant who's been using the property for parking, so that they're not parking in a residential space. So that, at its present use, I mean, that's what we're doing, and wanna take down some vegetation that's pretty clearly damaged, but I think pretty far away from the area that we, had a discussion about over a year ago.
So did you receive this into a legal ad for the RDA, or it's just
sent it today,
this is just a proposal?
Correct, yep, it wouldn't be until the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
And really, as I said, I wouldn't wanna shortchange you if I had bigger plans for it than that, but I at this point, it's just, a small piece of land, and we wanna use a small piece of it for nice open space. But I don't have any.
Yeah, I know, and I do appreciate that. I just, the way you wanna use it, you still need permits for that. And I understand that you just want it kind of to use it, but that's still, to even gain access to it, to do clearing, to do alteration was something that, in my opinion, should be before us, just as if, regardless if you were gonna build a house or just as recreational land, to create a parking area, that's in our permitting eyes the same.
I appreciate that. That's why I made the call and asked you guys to proactively come out, and you gave me this course of action. I assume that it makes the most sense and is the most pragmatic way forward.
So Melissa, what do you suggest is the right way to go about, for lack of a better word, post-permitting the previous work?
I think we discussed that he would need a professional wetland scientist.
Right, he needs a wetlands delineation, absolutely.
Yeah. So whether it's an INRAD or a notice of intent, that's kind of, I guess, dependent on the wetland delineation and what he wants to do. I think most of it, the property seems, most of the work at least is in a buffer zone area. So I think a notice of intent, just to make sure everything's legit, is probably the cleanest, easiest, most straightforward way. But that's just me.
I had the same opinion. Because we don't know, there's no current delineation, so we don't really even know where the 100-foot buffer is. We don't even know if the mapped wetland is more extensive or less extensive or what. So I don't think we really know what we're dealing with.
I agree, Glenda, that it is unlikely that the bounds marked on this map are correct. We have too much history here.
Right. I put my 2 cents in. Everyone else is very quiet.
It seems like you have to start off with the wetland delineation and go from there.
Because without that, we don't even know, like, where the 100-foot buffer line is and where there was historic wetlands or what's underneath the mulch or whatever, what's been filled.
Hello, is anybody there?
Yep, hello.
So
Very,
would
very
that
quiet.
propose that if no work nothing could happen on the site at all until a wetlands delineation was performed? Cause this moment for me, that'd be financially onerous and I wouldn't be able to use the lot any further. I mean, that was sort of I wasn't asking for the board's discretion in terms of making a ruling on what the wetlands looks like, but I did want to proactively invite the board out to see, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to financially afford, further
So I
investment
think that's
like that.
also kind of your due diligence, and if you're purchasing a lot, you need to know what you were legally allowed to do or not. And the Wetlands Protection Act is a state law. I'm having a hard time trying to circumvent that. Just because you own the lot doesn't, there's some due diligence that does have to happen.
I'd agree. I think that the complicated part of this particular lot is it was, filled a long time ago as production of 122. And if we were to be as, litigious about it as we could, it probably, was filled up, back when, and presents proximity issues with the wetland now because of, what happened in terms of its prior use and sort of the creation of that land. So, just trying to maximize or use what the state basically left behind on that lot, does put us close to the wetland. But I would argue just that the work had basically already been done, the cul-de-sac established, the turnaround established, the tailings and all the material was left behind long ago. And essentially flattening it and clearing the dead tree, I don't think constitutes violating the wetland is my point of view.
I think just my comments stand, and I really don't have anything else to add, Peter.
So what we're asking him to do is a wetlands delineation.
I think we
What
should
for him?
follow up on our previous request of the violation. Since there's continual work going on and there's a request for additional work. I get it's in a different area, but it's still the same parcel. It's still the same use and kind of associated work that we talked about. So first and foremost, I think we should make sure that we as a commission are following up on what we previously voted on and discussed a year ago in tandem with what the owner might want to propose on a lot, just as if any other person was coming before us to see what they could do. Just because they've already done it doesn't necessarily mean that it was allowed, because we did previously discuss and talk about and kind of agree that there was some concerns and we needed to follow up on it.
Well, likewise, I've got to say, a wetlands delineation sounds necessary because without that, we can't know that we are accurate, that we are reasonably permitting, that we are choosing the right permitting process for even the tree cutting. I mean, I look at the previous RDA that we did this evening, and it wasn't a full-blown map, but the stream itself gave away the areas that we were concerned with. I think this property is more complicated, and determining the wetland boundaries is going to end up being very important in order, ignoring what's happened in the past. Just to move forward with any permit on this process, we need to understand where the wetlands are. Does anyone, or am I wrong on this?
I agree. And at the same time, they could tell us where there's fill and if there's any fill. And the extent and all that.
Okay, I'll do my very best
So
to comply with that.
yeah. Okay. I'm sorry for the bad news. It's not gonna be fast and easy.
Well, it's, you know, I think, I tried to show that we want to do the honest effort to make sure that everything is above reproach. We're not trying to do anything under the cover of darkness, but, you know, it's very minor in use in nature, and mostly damaged trees. But we'll try to honor what you're requesting.
I don't mean to be the hard, mean lady. I'm trying to follow the rules, and I know I just want the commission to kind of follow through of what we had previously discussed. And it's not this lot specific, it's kind of holistic. It just kind of, you know, I'm just trying to make sure that we're doing our job too. And I really don't like being the bad lady, so I hate being it.
I
I'm
heard you,
sorry.
but I believe the first time around, you know, we had a discussion and verbally you said everything this way would require wetlands delineation, everything that way looks good. So that's sort of where I approached the matter from, as I said, not trying to pull anything over fast on anyone, but wanted to, you know, hear your words and I think that I was true to them, but you know, if your matter on the opinions change, then that is what it is and I'll conform with that. And we'll move on from there.
I do appreciate you coming in. It's not often people do that, so that it's very well noted and appreciated. I do appreciate it.
So let me ask a sub question, specifically related to the trees that are in danger of falling. Do we think there is a reasonable way to permit that from a safety point of view?
Are they gonna fall kind of in the wetland area, or are they?
They're
gonna
falling
fall
toward the
with backdrop?
townhouses, they're falling away from my property toward the townhouses that are habited toward the dry side. And the concern is that we can't really use it at all, it's a safety hazard as is. And I don't wanna touch the trees without your approval or blessing, but, you know, it puts us sort of at a standstill in terms of being able to access any of the property really back there, because of the safety issue, so in your purview, should I, you know, is there any way we can move forward on this area in terms of addressing the safety hazard, or should we just, you know, do we have to put a pin in it until the engineering comes back in, you know, months from now?
Are there ones imminent that are gonna hit the townhouses?
I mean, I sent pretty clear photographs, I tried to show I invited the board out, it's at your discretion, I think, you know, I feel that most of those trees are dangerous trees and should just come down, because they're sort of, you know, in an orphaned area. That's sort of the concern and what prompted this tonight. If we were doing something more extensive that, you know, was really developing the lot, I think you have, you know, full, you know, you're making valid points and that absolutely we should explore the wetlands on the site. But as far as this use, you know, I think it's very limited. But just like I did in this particular instance, I would consult the wisdom of the commission. And were we to do anything beyond this very specific request, I think it would probably be prudent to do a wetlands delineation at that point. And I think I've shown that I wanna take the proper steps when the time arises, and I do hear your concerns that doesn't always happen. And that sometimes, you know, an approval's given and then the line gets moved. But with all due respect, I don't think that that's what's going on here. Just would like to, you know, kind of address what we can address when we can address it financially. And were there to be a, you know, more coordinated use of the property, I would bring that before you.
I'd just like to say one thing. I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. The amount of wood he's looking to cut is normally permissible. He doesn't need a permit from us to cut wood.
I'm okay with an RDA for working the buffer that we don't know where the buffer line is. But to cut the trees at the base, don't pull stumps and don't put native gravel in there. If it's in the buffer, that's my opinion.
Is it amenable to the board that if we, the trees that would lie outside the border that are clearly on the far side of the lot, that those would be, we could take those, and the ones that we leave stumps, leave natural, as you've suggested?
I don't know. You're,
Kind of a
that's my
hybrid
point, you're
approach.
taking your chances, so we don't know where the 100-foot buffer line is, so I don't know. I can't answer that because we don't have enough information.
I look at it as being just such a small area that no matter what he does there, will have no impact anywhere. He did come to us to go out there and take a look, and we went out and took a look. All right, the area he's working in is certainly not wetlands.
I think there is, right, a way to permit the trees. If it's an RDA at the next meeting, that's fine. I just wanted to remind the commission that we did have the initial concern and discussion and agreement that the follow-up need to happen, that didn't. So if there is a safety hazard, absolutely. And again, I apologize because I haven't been up to date because I was away for literally since the last meeting till yesterday. But as we were discussing, I remembered that the previous discussions we've had, I just want to make sure that we still follow through on what we've previously agreed. But if there is an imminent safety concern, then an RDA at the next meeting is definitely an avenue that, you know, should be addressed if it's for safety.
Thank you, and it's my hope that, you know, this parcel is almost 3 acres, and we're trying to use, as Joe said, a very small portion of it. I recognize that there, you know, is water on this site. We're not looking to, you know, to maximize and use 3 acres of land. We're looking to use a small area of it and, you know, make available what is pretty well already established, and just make it safe. But I fully hear and recognize the concerns of the board, and I don't want that to go unnoticed either. You know, I have and hope to bring other requests before you and hope to do it in an amicable way. And, you know, wanna obviously fulfill your request, in this regard. But I think that in terms of planning and kind of where I'm able to achieve on this, I think that, you know, that would be, mark the next step in this property should we get there. But I certainly note the concerns and I appreciate it and don't, you know, wanna shortchange you for anything that you're due to make a smart decision on this.
You've definitely been upfront. I think as long as you can keep us updated and try to make progress to the overall goal, you know, I think there's multiple avenues that we can go, and especially if there's a way to make sure that you know, the adjacent properties are also protected, you know, especially if they're dead, then yes.
Would the board like me to do anything, the commission like me to do anything to address the wood chips that are in question? Should we leave them there? Should we rake them out? We certainly don't wanna use mechanized means to, you know, to touch them, but, you know, if that's something that you'd like to see, we could certainly work on that.
Did you look at them when you were out there?
Yeah. I think disturbing those chips at this point is gonna
Cause a problem.
cause more damage than, you know, I just look at that being one of those no-win situations. At some point, looking towards the future a little bit here, that lot's gonna be worth some money. The zoning down there, and it's an area that I think the town really wants to do things down there. That lot may become worth something at some point. At that point, it would probably be a developer or someone with the financial means to do all the engineering on it and submit the paperwork that benefits, someone else and the town. Right now, we've got an owner that is trying to pay the taxes on it, all right, and getting zero return. All right? Not trying to minimize your position or anything, Evan, but we've got an owner here that inherited, for all intents and purposes, the lot. And the problems that came with it that will date back to when the roadway was done by the state. And all he's trying to do is collect a little bit of rent by allowing someone to park their truck and keep it out of a residential neighborhood in town where we get numerous complaints. I don't know if you know that. I'm addressing Austin at this point. I don't know if you know the neighborhood I'm talking about, but in the past, we had problems up in that neighborhood because of tree trucks and excavators and what have you being parked in a residential area. And they're looking to move these things down onto his property. He needs a little bit of space to put them. And right now, it would help him cover his costs of ownership. That's why I said, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. We have an opportunity here to solve a big problem in town. And we also have, whatever happened in the past over there, it isn't just this particular fella dropping, or not Evan personally, but somebody else that dropped some wood chips in there, all right? And the fill and all of that stuff was already there, thanks to whether it was MassDOT or whoever, all right? And we're holding his feet to the fire. Right.
Joe, I'm not talking about historic fill, I'm talking about new fill.
At some point, there's gonna be an NOI coming before us because somebody's gonna wanna develop that. Whether it's for mixed use or a strip mall, whatever the case might be. All right? I
So I
think
see what you're saying.
that would be a person better
Sense.
positioned.
But just as they have to comply with zoning, they have to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act.
Are they, but going back, why are you taking the trees out? Is it for safety reasons or is it because you wanna park vehicles there?
They are a safety hazard.
They're a safety
undoubtedly
hazard.
a
You
safety
can't park a
hazard.
vehicle in there next to them without
And I
worrying
mean,
about
I've
it falling on
hesitated to walk these gentlemen back there because
Yeah, there's a couple that are falling down. They're already leaning.
I don't have any problem with you just cutting the dangerous ones at the base with no permit, like right now.
well, I don't wanna do that.
But I mean, if
I
you-
wanted to do this.
If you're gonna cut them all down, pull all the stumps out, bring in fill in the 100-foot buffer, I think that needs a permit.
Well, and again, part of that is that
I'm
this
not
is
trying to
the-
make a mountain out of a molehill.
And we don't have to bring the gravel in. My running thought is it would be the smartest, most pragmatic way to stabilize, because this is, if you stand in that lot, every other property around it is above it. And so anything you do to, if you do have a tree that falls down, you're gonna get water there because the lot itself is the low-lying area. So it may not be a wetland, but it is definitely the, where all the water is passing through in relation to most of the properties around it. And that's, that surface water the mitigation there would just be a level lot. So I'm, certainly wouldn't bring in any fill from a perspective of, we could level the lot out probably with what's there, and just prevent any of that surface water from collecting. Just
So you
about
can't
finish
do
grade.
any grading. I think that's the point we're trying, at least me and Glenda are trying to get a point, is you can't do grading without a permit.
Understood.
I mean, if it's for safety and you wanna park trucks there, then cut the trees, the dangerous trees at the base, leave the stumps in place, and just work around that area, I mean, cause once you start getting into bringing in stone and grading in the 100-foot buffer, that's a whole different,
Or when you start stumping.
right.
And technically, the parking of a truck is commercial and it would need to meet stormwater standards. So it brings in a whole slew of things. That if Glenda, as she said, if you can just cut it and just leave it, then, it's as a safety thing, then that's one thing, but leveling it off is something you need an application for. And removing stumps and grading.
I had forgotten about the stormwater stuff, Melissa. Especially for commercial and industrial.
It unfortunately makes a huge difference, yeah.
Yep.
So I agree, it sounds like, we want to encourage a certain amount of commercial development in this town, and we have commercial issues in neighborhoods, but we don't make it possible, to use a small amount of available land. It makes it onerous, and we're gonna continue to have issues of, residential neighborhoods having those excavators and having trucks as opposed to what is a commercial space.
We can't consider a zoning issue under the Conservation Commission.
Right.
I understand it's a town-wide thing, but Wetland Protection Act is our thing. And just like zoning, you have to comply with it.
Does that I did not visit the site, but does that cart path go completely around those trees?
Yeah,
Is
it's
there
fully in circles, you can drive around the trees
a
100%.
stable and
with a-
established
Yes.
all the
with
way
a-
around?
With a regular sized vehicle, not with a lawnmower, it is a cart path and it encircles all those trees. And whatever may be wet lies outside of that turnaround area.
Way back when, I think it was a materials staging area that
Yeah.
the state used when they were
Doing the work on it.
redoing 122 there.
Significant amount of, remnant rock and, and processed
Just
materials
the
and
nature
tailings
of
and.
what's there on the site.
Yep.
So where are we leaving this young man at? Is allow him to cut the trees for safety purposes, and when he gets money and time to do wetland delineation, have that done, then come back to us, or what are we looking at? I mean.
Right. I think that's exactly
long
what it
enough.
is. Yep, he's got yes. Do we need to do an emergency cert or any sort of paperwork to allow him to cut the dangerous trees?
I wouldn't think so.
Well,
Are we doing
No.
an RDA or no?
as long as you're not stumping, as long as we agree that it's a safety thing, then just cut it at the base and
Are we able
Let
to
us know when
grind the
you do it.
stumps flush to the surface of the grade?
Yeah, you could grind them down, just don't dig them out.
Okay.
Yeah, don't grind them out.
No, dig them out.
Yeah.
I have a letter that in the past we provided to residents when they were being allowed to cut down hazardous trees. Would you like me to just do that for him?
beautiful.
Yes, please.
Okay.
What was that?
It's just a letter in the past that I've drafted on behalf of the commission and given to folks, just so they have documentation to say that the commission said it was
Oh,
okay
okay, yeah,
to take
yeah,
the hazardous
do that.
trees down.
Yes, please do that.
And Tamika, should I,
Yes.
for this, we still wanna do the RDA, I
No,
think.
you don't have to do the
Oh,
RDA.
we don't, okay.
So I
Alright.
won't need a check after all.
Alright,
Do you want this back?
no, you're welcome to keep that.
I'll touch base with you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think we understand the plan, right? Any other questions? Do we want to make a motion to write that letter?
So moved.
I'll second.
Other discussion? Roll call.
Gentilucci, aye.
Williams and I.
Clock eye.
Dog eye.
Keenan, aye.
Dan's eye.
Crane eye. Okay. So now, Evan, I think you have a path forward. You understand what we're going to need for any other work, right?
I do,
Okay.
and I will do my best to provide that for you in a timely manner as best I can.
That's cash.
Okay, fantastic.
as well as it can go. And the backstory is that, you know, I purchased some derelict lots in town. I've lived here my whole life, and to buy one, I got 19. So I'm not a rich man, and I'm not trying to develop the town, but I am trying to help, you know, do what I can and clean, you know, and make right certain parcels that haven't been right for a long time. So I appreciate your time and I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, Austin. Thank you.
Good luck.
Sorry, I didn't know it was
Beat
gonna
tree
take
talk,
that
that
long.
was
Well,
really
Austin,
exciting.
that was fast, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, sorry about that.
30 minutes. Poor guy.
Was that 30 minutes? It
No,
was,
it's 55.
okay, I thought so. My phone is dead, so obviously can't survive without it. Thank you for taking the time. My request, I think, was previously discussed at previous Conservation Commission meetings, maybe one or two. I'm requesting the use of Wetlands Protection Act funds to support FY '25 salaries for the conservation agent position. This is due, well, the request is mostly due to, as you recall, in the current fiscal year, funding for the conservation agent salary is included in the general fund. If you've been following any of the FY '25 budget development process, we're not in the best of situations in terms of overall bottom line. In an effort to maintain the position and recognizing some of the opportunity of Wetlands Protection Act, I'm respectfully asking for the use of the funds to fund costs associated with the salary for the agent's position for FY '25.
Do we know average annual intake for the account?
You
It is the
guys
same
probably know
thing.
better, Tamika might know better, I know the current balance is 120,000. Actually, it's more than that, 127 as of
Hold on, I
close of
have it.
last month.
131, 683, 60, sorry,
So-
127, 378, 28.
And in FY '21, we took in just a little over $6,000, the same in FY '22. In FY '23, we only did 4,200 in revenue.
I'm sorry,
And so far in 24, we've only done 1,300.
And then out though, as just being Tamika, is at least 2,700. So that only leaves kind of a little over half, like $3,000.
So in 24, we had two sets of expenditures, one for Tamika's salary and the other for outfitting the conservation agent. All the stuff that we bought for her came out of the WPA fund, and that totals 55, 56, a little over 5,600 so far. We are in April, so we have April, May, and June to finish, so it's roughly a quarter of this 26. That's another 700 or so dollars for wages, and I don't know of any other expenditures we expect to come out. So we'll be in the order of $126,000 in the WPA fund at the end of fiscal 24, beginning of fiscal 25.
So what are the wages for the new?
What kind of dollars we're looking at, Austin?
So the position is advertised, we're actually looking to increase the hours. As you know, the previous conservation agent was budgeted for 10 hours per week. We're increasing that to a full-time position, 38 hours per week, split between 19 hours in the town of Rutland and 19 hours in the town of Sterling. The proposed salary range, obviously, we just advertised last week, so we don't have a conservation agent. The range is 52,000 to 74,000. Obviously, that's split 50-50 between the two communities. So the cost, 20 to 30,000, give or take, per community.
So potentially we could fund that for about 4 years and then we'd be out of money.
Well, so yeah, I'm actually looking to split between the Wetlands Protection Act Fund and because it's also stormwater coordinator, using the new Stormwater Enterprise Fund. So I'd be looking to split whatever Rutland's cost is 50-50 between the two funds.
So you said 38 hours. That's not 40 hours a week.
Still full-time.
Yeah, anything over.
Anything
Yeah,
over
well,
30.
no, they should work the 40 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody
Well,
that
certainly,
does
I
that
think
anymore.
No,
some feedback from the previous agent was Rutland has a lot more than 10 hours worth of work for, especially for conservation. So in the intermunicipal agreement, we have language in there to make sure that if Rutland's busier one week, most weeks, just making sure that they communicate and work closely with Sterling to say, hey, I need to spend a little bit more time in Rutland. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But also recognizing that we have lots of requirements with MS4, hence why we started up the stormwater utility. We thought it was important to also add those responsibilities.
How is Sterling funding their side of it?
I don't know. Candidly, I didn't ask because I don't care.
No, you really don't care. I mean,
yeah.
none of
No,
our
just
business.
curiosity.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think there's probably I think they're using some general fund. They're in a little bit better position than we are.
So what happened to our general fund that we had for our past agent?
Oh, so there's still wages available, but that turns to free cash at the end of the year. So if we were to hire.
What I'm saying is going forward in the budget, why aren't we doing it?
Yeah, so I had to, unfortunately, I think going through the budget process, I had to make some tough decisions on positions. However, I didn't want to lose recognizing the importance of this position. We don't have Wetlands Protection Act funds or enterprise funds for every position, right? I can't pay for the town accountant services from any other fund. It has to be a general fund service.
I'm gonna ask you a real blunt question.
Sure. Yep.
We voted an override, and at the time we voted for that, we were told $1 million was gonna put us flush.
Yep.
We voted 2 million, and we managed to blow an extra $1 million in 1 year.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna push
I
back on
just-
that.
I'm just
I think
curious,
you were
where did
told
that money
1.8
go?
million was gonna make you flush. And then the schools came back with $1 million increase this year, which ate the $200,000 in excess levy capacity, plus any new revenue and new growth. Our budget deficit this year is $715,000 for FY '25.
Because we did vote way back when we originally talked about hiring on a conservation agent. We have 2 on the board. I'm a little blasé about how excited I should be about having a conservation agent because we have the expertise available to us, number one. So I'm not sure, in my mind, I can justify it, in my heart, I can't. If you follow what I'm saying.
Sure.
I look at what I'm paying in taxes now, after I got whacked. And we got the other stuff coming up that we're gonna get whacked with, the MS4. All right, every property owner in town's gonna get that. And we pissed $1 million away. And I gotta be quite honest with you, I'm real less than happy about that.
Sure.
All right, it burns me to no end. The town was extremely lucky to get that override passed. Right, the reputation here was no overrides for time immemorial. All right, and the people opened up their wallets and said, okay, we think there's a problem and we're willing to work with it. All right, I haven't seen that work from the town side of it. The taxpayers did their part, but I don't see that happening from the town side of things. I see too many new vehicles, all right, that are used, I'll leave that alone, how they're used, all right? But I see vehicles that are abused. I see vehicles that are not maintained. All right, we turn vehicles around, look at the condition of some of the vehicles that are 3 years old, that are in worse shape than my truck that's 12 years old. All right? So I don't know that we treat the taxpayers' money with the gravitas that it deserves. I look at the condition of the buildings, I look at the condition of the roadways. All right? Granted, you know, we're doing a lot of nice things, you know, down my way, I mean, but I just don't see the returns, you know, and it's tough, you know, to go after, you know, a fund that's sitting there. And if that's what we decide to do, fine, you know, it's not my decision alone, all right? But I gotta tell you, I'm really disappointed in the town government, all right, that they should even need to come to us to fund that position. Right? And I feel that it's town government that has kind of, I don't know, pressured us for that position.
I think it's a really common occurrence, honestly. Holden just went through the same thing with the school budget. And then, you know, having to go with the 2.5 overrides in the ballot vote to get more money. And my salary, I think almost $7,000 a year comes out of our Wetland Protection Act fund. It's pretty common to use that fund for salary.
Well, I'm not arguing whether it's common to use it. I mean, the money's there. That's not my argument. My argument is, are we judiciously using the money available, right, to fund all the positions we've got in town? It's not just.
You're basically asking, do we need a conservation agent? And a
I'm asking that
stormwater,
question too.
and a stormwater person.
I wasn't mentioning anything about stormwater person. I think
Because
we
this person
absolutely need that.
says it's also a stormwater position.
Can we maybe just focus on this, just, Joe, and I don't want to minimize your concerns, especially, I think most of them are concerns about just being a general resident and your tax money at work, but in terms of the specific request that Austin has, Austin, what was the high number in the salary range?
So it's 52 to 74.
Okay. And so we would split it half and half with Sterling. So we would be, we'll say 30, what was that, 37? And then half again?
Yeah.
Between, okay, so that,
So that's roughly 19, call it 20.
okay, so 20 grand a year is what we would, the maximum that we would be essentially be putting up. Is that what you're requesting?
Yeah.
For FY 25 moving forward?
And just to be clear, I'm sorry, Melissa, just to be clear, if there's any unspent monies due to hiring or transition, it would remain in the wetlands protection. We're not looking to pull it out and it becomes general fund money. It would remain in.
Correct. Yeah, because legally you couldn't do that.
Right.
Have you talked to the town accountant and or town council? I think my main concern is just as we get audited to make sure that we don't get hit with the question of the difference, because the WPA funds can only be used for enactment of the Wetlands Protection Act or, you know, jurisdiction regarding that.
Yep. So I think, Glenda just briefly mentioned that, you know, the neighboring community in town of Holden uses their Wetlands Protection Act funds. I do have an IGR from the Department of Revenue, allowable expenditures. Monies in the revolving fund may also be used to pay salaries of regular employees to the extent attributable to Wetland Protection Act activities. Because this will be a full-time conservation agent in stormwater, we believe that the money that's being requested is in conformance with the regulations of Wetlands Protection Act and further this IGR.
So Austin.
If anything was specific to a stormwater permit, we could not legally pay for it out of wetlands protection.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Right. That's why it's half and half. But my bigger question, Austin, is that there's been a lot. Not only have we had pressure from government to get a conservation agent, we've also gotten pressure to have a wetlands bylaw, and enforcement of our bylaw is not WPA fundable. So at least that's my understanding.
Yeah, nor drafting of the bylaw is WPA fundable either.
Right. So I don't know how to make sure, other than not having a bylaw, to be certain that that all the wetlands hours of the conservation agent are WPA fundable? And if they, and anything that isn't, how do we deal with that?
Well, we have this thing called timesheets, and Tamika does, I think, exactly the same thing. When she spends time working for Concom, she has a timesheet that has a special revenue code that attributes right to your Wetlands Protection Act funds. So I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to ask the new conservation agent to track their hours for when they're doing conservation work. And that those monies would be spent out of the Wetlands Protection Act. When they're doing stormwater related work, it would be paid out of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund.
Right, but my problem, Austin, is that once we have a bylaw, any work that person does in furtherance of our bylaw cannot be funded. So it's, even though they're working for the Conservation Commission, that person is not.
Well, aren't they doing both, Peter?
No,
If they're
yeah,
enforcing
Peter,
the
but
local
that was-
bylaw, they're enforcing the
Yeah.
state bylaw too, right?
I don't think you can just make a distinguishment. That never even came up,
Well,
as far as I
I'm not
know.
I think, yeah, the Wetlands Protection Act comes first and foremost, so, I guess
I
I
don't
don't know,
really,
I'm less concerned about that.
I don't think we really need to worry about that.
So you're saying a full-time position at 30
Having read the
hours.
law, I am worried because it's
I
only,
split that with Sterling.
it's
So
only
we're
the
not-
administration
we're not
and
getting a
enforcement
full-time
of the
person.
Wetlands Protection Act. It does not
We're only
allow.
getting a half-time person.
Correct.
I guess
But you're getting more than you have now.
Yeah, but we're splitting that again with stormwater and Concom. So Concom really, we had 10 hours before, now we're gonna end up with 9.5.
Well, I don't know about that. I think a majority of, I think we're, to use your words, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill here.
We might get more than we pay for.
I think you're gonna get more than you pay for. I think there's a lot of stormwater work that's necessary, but I think we all know that
That's gonna be a nightmare.
with all the development that's happening, there's also a lot of conservation work that's necessary. Also, stormwater is still going to be the responsibility of DPW. This position is going to support the work of DPW, especially with the required reporting and some of the stormwater infrastructure that's necessary. I think it would be prudent for the town to have someone with experience, knowledge in stormwater to support the DPW in their work too.
No argument there.
Yeah,
The other question I have
Sure, Joe.
is, who does this person answer to?
The town planner and community development coordinator.
In a conservation agent position?
Correct.
That's who I answer to.
Well, that's organizational. It's not,
Yeah.
not day-to-day work
Right.
things.
I mean, staff support to the, I mean, ask Glenda, who, you work in the planning.
I
community development
technically
office.
report to the planning director.
Yeah.
He's my
But you staff
supervisor,
support for
but,
Concom, right?
I mean, he signs my timesheet, but that's about it. I mean, we work together on projects when they overlap.
Okay.
And that's based off feedback from the previous agent reporting to the town administrator that appeared to not work for.
See, I'm kind of surprised, though, that the select board would go out and negotiate something with another town, which is their right, without having the funding guaranteed to them to carry out whatever they're negotiating.
Well, this is for FY '25, and also per the IGR, the selectmen actually, use of Wetlands Protection Act funds need to be approved by the selectmen as well.
Right, but they need to be approved by Concom first.
Yep, that's why I'm here.
I have no objection to using the fund for agent salary. It's gonna help. Especially with stormwater, because that's becoming a real problem.
But that's not coming out of our money.
I'm just saying, they'll be working on stormwater.
How long is the agreement for with Sterling?
3 year.
What if Sterling wants to bail out at some point? They're locked in for 3 years.
No, there's a certain notice that's required. Rutland could also back out as well. Intermunicipal agreements require advance notice to be able to do that, so we'd have to evaluate planning. I think what would be likely necessary is we either look at the staffing breakdown and we say, all right, you know, we can't afford the full 38 hours, scale it back, or we identify alternative funding sources, whether it is the local Wetlands Protection Act Fund, whether it's the Wetland Protection Act Fund, or whether it's the Stormwater Fund, or the general
What is
fund.
Sterling doing now? Or do they just don't have an agent?
I think they have an interim agent right now. I'm not sure though.
I think they were using a consultant
Yeah.
for a while.
But same time we lost our agent, they lost theirs as well, so they've been without someone for a while too.
So this person would be able to start when?
They haven't hired him
As
yet.
soon as hired.
Well, no, I mean, but fiscal 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think the plan, especially for the use of, the request for the use of these funds and also the Stormwater Enterprise Fund would be FY '25. If we do hire someone sooner, I think we can make do with funds available in, the balance right now for the agent.
Beyond my lifetime, how are we gonna fund that position? Once the WPA funds run out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to
We're
look
gonna be
at,
drawing water from the well at
yeah.
a much higher rate than we're replenishing.
I mean, I would make the argument, you know, that I think it would be also prudent to make sure that we do have the local bylaw that creates for some revenue opportunities through there, enforcement of that, to utilize those funding sources. Again, I think, and I agree with all your points about the budget situation. Unfortunately, I think that's where we're at. I think now, if you were to look at through the budget process, we have a long-term financial forecast to look and see what the next years look like. We have a capital plan, so we're working on the financial health of the community. And we need to identify additional revenues for the community. So whether it's creation of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, which was approved by voters, or some other funding sources, I think we'll have to be creative. But for right now, I think it's a benefit that we do have these funds available.
Yeah, because I see a convergence of a couple of lines here, lines of where the wetlands, the income will eventually dry up at some point in the future, and it may not be that far out, depending on,
Sure.
you know, building. But, and the convergence of no work for the person, but we've drawn it down, and we're not replenishing now, you know, at a rate quick enough to support. So when that convergence is gonna hit, and it's gonna hit hard, you know? And it's something that, do you make this is, you know, conjecture only, but do you make a decision at some point when you reach that convergence where you say, we don't need a conservation agent anymore? Because there isn't enough to keep one busy? Or do we keep going forward or cut hours, or what's the future hold for that person? You know, I mean, right now, you know, the next couple of years, 3 years, yeah, I'd say say you could keep them busy. But beyond that, you know, who knows, you know, I mean, it's the typical question we sit and ask.
Is that position gonna be for the same 3 years of the agreement?
No, the agreement is just talking about sharing one, like, you know, sharing individual or sharing a position. So, you know, while I agree that kind of the development may fluctuate and the work of the conservation agent may fluctuate with respect to development, I also think that there were certain projects that were spurred by the creation of a conservation agent. For example, our fire ponds. It was discovered that there was a lot of work needed on all of our fire ponds. The previous agent worked closely with the fire chief to develop a plan for that. So there's a lot of work that I think we can do organizationally that this position will help with. I think that there's probably more than 19 hours of
Well, I'm not arguing that.
you know what I mean? So I do think
What I was
that-
trying to impress upon you, you know, you're talking to us and calling it a full-time job, all right? And it's not, it's a half-time job because we're splitting it with Sterling, and then we're splitting it again with the stormwater, all right?
Yeah.
And we end up net with less than 10 hours.
It's a full-time
that
benefited
we had
position.
before, and it's
a full-time
costing us
benefited
more.
position that works for two communities. Again, I think regionalization is something, first of all, I think the very first posting, job description that was shared from you folks was actually proposed to be shared with the town of Paxton. For, I can't even remember what those hours were, I think maybe 20 hours, so 10 hours apiece.
I think it was fewer.
If even that.
I think it was 10 for us and fewer for Paxton, because they didn't
Yeah.
plan on it.
So even the hours that we're proposing, whether we wanna call it, split 9.5, or whatever between
No, I'm just-
two enterprise funds.
I'm just splitting the hair here.
Yeah, I think right now, in the very beginning, it's gonna be very busy with conservation. Just because we don't even have full rules and regs right now for stormwater. We're just getting started on stormwater. There's still bylaws for stormwater that need to be accepted by, at town meetings. So I certainly think that there's also a lot of work there too, but just in terms of the catch up on conservation, I think that you're gonna get a lot of the 19 hours a week. I think
It's gonna
right
be a
now.
nightmare going forward. There's gonna be a lot of work.
And
Austin, did you say you had talked to town council? Sorry.
no,
Or no?
No.
I mean, I think personally, that's like my one, it's just niggling at my mind as if we had just some sort of validation, whether it's town council or if we have auditors or someone that we can talk to, or the town accountant, just kind of double verify that it won't, we don't have to worry about week to week breakdowns, because I also don't want to make it incredibly tedious on whoever we hire if they have to almost 15-minute increments make sure that they're writing down their time in case a question comes about it and the use of our funds.
how do you do it? I mean, would
know.
we also have the same question right now for the arrangement with Tamika being at these meetings?
No, because she's our assistant doing the minutes.
Right, but it's still through the I mean, I think for the purposes, the administration of the Wetlands Protection Act, wouldn't the questions, I think, still be considered of tracking her time, which she does? I think it wouldn't be unreasonable.
Yeah, I'm just saying if they're working, two different towns and now separating it again between two different departments in two different towns. I'm just for simplicity's sake, if we were, because our use of funds is so explicit, I just want to make sure that we don't get dinged in the future by saying we did something incorrectly, because something might be, gray in between because of, because her is very explicit. She's in a Concom meeting doing the Concom minutes, but if our agent is just sitting in the office and someone, it's small details that I just want to make sure we have addressed and looked at and confirmed.
Melissa, I don't think it would be any different than what Tamika's doing now anyway, because she's fielding the calls and doing the emails, and where is she doing that and when? Not at the
All that it
meetings,
really
she's doing
comes down
that, she's doing that on his dime, all right?
Well, you're done.
A dime, but
But
the liability would be
it
no
all comes
different.
down to timesheet accounting, as Austin said, so that we, as long as each person who's drawing from the Wetlands Fund, WPA fund, properly accounts for their hours that are paid for by the WPA fund. I don't see there being a problem here.
Right.
Yeah, I want to make sure that it's not overly burdensome, that the person that is in this position isn't, I guess, concerned that they have to get something so perfect as well. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to make sure that there's enough of an availability to, yes, that it would be documented on the timesheet, and that is good. That's all that's needed.
Yeah, no, Melissa, I do appreciate the concern there. I think that this is a practice, you think of how many grants that we have that support staff salaries. There's strict reporting requirements, especially for grant administration, to make sure that, if Tamika's working on a grant, she has to make sure that the hours associated with that grant are properly accounted for. So this is a practice that I think the organization is accustomed to and familiar with. So this wouldn't be necessarily a new thing for us. But certainly I think it would be prudent to make sure that the department head that is the town planner, and then also the new employee, understands that, you know, especially the strict requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act, when they're doing conservation agent work, make sure that you are aware of your hours and record them appropriately.
So you would have no problem getting a letter from KP Laws addressed to conservation saying that anything goes wrong, we're not held liable?
I wouldn't, I just think it would be
No,
asking.
I'm asking you if you
Sure, but
would.
can I finish? But we'd be asking to spend funds on a
How much-
legal opinion.
How much funds would it be to have them write a letters stating that we're secure, being the Conservation Commission?
I would-
$500, $1,000?
I
Tell
would
me.
ask the person who pays the legal bills how much staff time, what's our most recent bill from KP Law for work? Maybe on one deliverable,
What's their hourable rate?
too much.
Yeah, over 100.
No, how much is, what's their rate per hour?
Well, it depends on, but it's between $100 and $200 an hour.
That's cheap.
For the town of Rutland, it's pretty expensive.
That is, for an attorney, that's cheap.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Well, so where do you want that to come out of, the Wetlands Protection Act funds?
No, you couldn't.
No,
that's-
it can't come out of our.
That's
Oh,
legal
I'm
fees.
being
You're the one
facetious.
that's asking us for this money,
I agree.
all right?
I agree.
And in my
But I don't-
opinion, I'm
again,
saying no.
I
When
don't
it
think a
comes to
legal
vote,
opinion
no.
is necessary. I think there's been common practice with other communities, neighboring communities.
Okay.
I don't, and we have IGRs to back it up as well. I don't.
IGI
again,
doesn't mean nothing to me, all right?
Well, that's what we follow, whether it's asking the town, I mean, it's the Bureau of Accounts for the Department of Revenue.
That's what I said, it doesn't mean nothing, it means nothing to me,
Okay.
all
I
right?
think if it makes sense to use the funds for an agent, if it's gonna help the commission to have an agent.
Can you share those with us?
Sure.
And there's two other very well-known sources of information on the use of NOI.
Here's another one from the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, and here's a page drafted from the, essentially how to be a conservation agent that speaks into
MACC
detail.
handbook.
Yep.
They did this a while ago. 97.
So I think just because we've been going so long, and Peter, I'm sorry, is it something that I think we have some discontent about? Maybe we want individually to think about it, and if we have any questions, to reach out to Austin in the meantime, and then have this again at our next agenda.
I just wanted.
That's fine with me.
that the next meeting is going to be the same evening as the select board meeting because of the holiday. So I imagine Austin will be at the select board meeting and wouldn't be able to attend this meeting.
So get your questions to him in advance and get the answers in advance. Because Tamika, I agree that
This is
Austin is
concerning.
much more likely to be at the select board meeting than wherever we are meeting. Austin, were there conservation agent changes to the job description?
No, we just added, stormwater.
Just added the stormwater.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And the
Any
hours,
other
and the associated hours of work increasing from 10 to 19.
True. All right. I like Melissa's idea. Let's think about it. Everybody's got 2 weeks to come up to questions for Austin.
Austin, you're in trouble now.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Peter.
I said everybody's got 2 weeks to come up with questions for you and for you to come up with the answers.
Well, I would respectfully ask those questions in advance so I can make sure I have the answers.
Absolutely. No, I
does the-
think that's the right thing to do.
What cycle does the payroll run on? Is it weekly?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly?
Yep.
Okay. So we would have an opportunity to sign like the selectmen sign a warrant we would need to sign and approve.
No,
Expenditure
no,
out of the
wetland,
WPA.
so, per the IGR, if an expenditure is approved, it would then just go through the normal warrant process that's signed by selectmen.
Say that
So we would
again?
just do like a yearly allowance based on what the salary is, basically.
Correct.
All right, so
Okay.
just
And would that
agent
be,
for the
sorry,
annual.
would that be
Okay.
for the 3-year or just every year?
No, so my request is strictly just for,
Just for
fiscal year
FY 25 for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other requests
Thank
will
you.
come back to the commission, which I have to by the law anyway.
Yep. So at a maximum in FY 25 for a conservation agent, we would be paying out of the Wetlands Protection Act, we'll say 20 grand. Is what basically the request comes down to.
Well, if the time is actually half, if this person spends 75% of the time on wetlands, it's more.
Well, it depends on their final.
No, I think
Right?
Yeah,
Austin,
it
is it
also
gonna be
depends on
50-50 no
issue.
matter what?
I'm sorry.
Is it gonna be 50-50 no matter what, or is it
Yes.
dependent on how many hours they do? So it is
Well, you
20 grand no
reconcile
matter.
at some point at the end of the year,
All right.
right?
So
Sorry,
it's more than 20,000 a year, though.
Right, but our portion of Wetlands Protection Act at most, regardless of how much time, if they spend more, is going to be 20 because it's split 50-50 between
Not if
WPA and
it's, not if
stormwater.
it's $70,000 a year.
Right, but it's 70,
Yes.
of those
No.
70,000,
We only paying a
Half of
fourth.
that would be ours. Half of 70 is what?
No,
No.
we're paying a
Quarter
fourth
of
of that.
that would be ours.
No, it wouldn't be a quarter. How do you figure?
Yes, we would, because we're only paying half of the total salary. The town of Rutland is only paying half. The Conservation Commission is only paying half of the half.
Yeah, we're paying a quarter of it.
Peter, I mean.
So 20
no,
grand is
I
pretty much.
disagree, I disagree, but that's all
what it's
right.
gonna be.
You guys can think what you want, but I
No,
disagree.
this 70 is
We're
salary.
not
The
taking a
benefits-
vote right now.
It's a benefited job, right?
Yeah.
What's the benefits cost us?
The best practice is to budget about 30%, but, so it's, if they take the full benefit package, it's 25,000.
does that come from WPA or from other funds?
It would be split. Those are kind of indirect cost accounting, right? So the full cost of the employee, would be built into the payroll, right?
Yeah, so you're looking at the high end, you're looking at $100,000 a year for this person. So our cost would be about 25, not 20. If it's at the high end, at the low end, you know,
Right, we're splitting that, yeah. Yep.
I can remember when you took the salary and you multiplied by 1.15 to cover the
Imagine that.
benefits. Imagine
That'd
that.
be nice. Yeah.
Kind of date myself, but
All right, anything else on this?
Nope.
All right,
and we can't apologize for I didn't think that was gonna be
It's okay.
quite as long as it was.
It's all right.
Sorry, you can buy yourself dinner and drinks now.
I can?
Yeah.
So to be clear, I'm coming back.
well, we'll have a discussion in 2 weeks, and whether you're here or not, that's why I'm hoping everyone thinks about it and gets their questions to you so that you can answer them before the next meeting.
Yeah, I think our expectation is you will not be at the next meeting. So if people have questions to make their decision at the next meeting, then get them to Austin in a reasonable amount of time so that he can respond.
So I would, if there's gonna be a discussion about it, I'd prefer to be there, just to be able to answer questions on the spot. So if it's the next meeting, no, I can't be here because I think there's a selectmen's meeting. If there's another time that you folks meet, and this is on the agenda, I'd be happy to attend if I'm available.
Well, in fact, I don't see a problem with us pushing it off to May 7. 7? Whatever the first meeting in May is.
Can I just,
Fiscal 25 is coming up pretty quick.
a little unsure still of some of so I know, Joe, I think found some of the answer, Melissa, in the IGR that you were speaking to.
Okay.
I'm just a little unclear about what the concern is, or what the potential questions are that haven't
So
been already discussed at a previous meeting and then tonight.
I don't think we've discussed this at a previous meeting, have we?
I don't know,
I haven't been a part of it. I've been at the last couple of meetings.
because this is on old business, so that's why I figured it was a previous discussion.
I haven't been a
Old
part of
and new
it.
business. It's both. We have a single
Oh, okay.
business item.
Oh, I like that. Streamlined.
Yeah, simplifies it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the
New.
first time we've talked about this, so I think that's
Okay.
part of,
Alright.
I haven't seen any documents yet.
Well,
We
I
could.
recall there was I did watch a previous meeting. I recall there was a brief
There
possible
was
discussion
before
about
we
it.
hired. There was before we hired Bree a discussion about whether or not we were willing to use WPA funds for Bree or for that hire.
Okay.
So there has been a previous discussion about it, and the discussion there was clearly negative.
Right.
No, I meant
We
the
voted not to
direct previous
fund her
meeting.
that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't, I guess, a part of any of that discussion then. I was at the meeting, but I wasn't made aware of it.
Okay.
In any event. This makes it really tight though, Austin. That's what I got to say, that this gets it literally just before town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way the timing works out.
So we'll take a
Wait,
vote at our, what's our first?
So is there,
Seven.
yeah, was there discussions, I guess, that I should be caught up on? I guess I'm out of the loop.
It wasn't a long discussion. It was when, as we were first posting. No, actually it was
No,
in
at the
budget.
last meeting.
Oh,
I
at
think
the last-
Austin was talking about something was discussed, but I don't.
Not this.
Not our last meeting, there was nothing.
Well, so I think what I heard was there was a question about should we discuss the conservation agent, and I think the quote was,
It wasn't
We
on
have-
the agenda.
well, we have some ideas for use of those funds, but we'll talk about it offline, or when the cameras are off. So I wasn't sure if a discussion occurred either at the meeting.
Nobody ever said that
I
in
don't
here.
think so.
When the
I
cameras
do
were on.
not
have
think
said
so.
No.
But the truth is, we did not discuss it afterwards.
Okay.
These yours?
You can keep.
So we could, is that new forest cutting plan in the SharePoint? Okay, under,
So I'll come back.
Materials, yep.
for this meeting.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
Austin.
Austin.
You want to read some of that?
Oh, okay.
Sorry about
We're not
that,
done
Peter.
yet. Yeah.
Sorry about that, but no.
Know what?
We
No
work-
new taxes.
No new taxes. Public Dunkin' Donuts correspondence, what are we looking at?
No, first, no, wait, well, let's have an actual discussion about the CPA and whether we're willing to write a letter of support or not.
I'm gonna tell you myself, no, I'm not willing to, my name will not be on it. I cannot see us charging people tax money to take and buy tax land, buy open space and put it off the tax rolls and lose the tax money besides. No,
Yeah, but
you're not finding
there
my
are a
name.
lot more, there are a lot more uses than that, Skip.
it's-
Well, several more uses than that.
But it's emphasized heavily with the people that are driving it, that they're looking to do open space and agricultural land.
Yep.
Heavily, so no.
So what's wrong with
Well,
it?
What?
Protecting agricultural lands?
All right, you're gonna buy it, the town's gonna buy it. I'm
No,
gonna
I
use
mean-
myself for an example.
You could use
No, wait a minute.
an APR on it.
No, wait a minute. The town's gonna buy my 61A land. All right, my farm. All right, the town buys it. They pay me, I don't know, say $1.5 million. Now they're gonna lose $25,000 a year that I pay taxes, and I don't have any call to use any of the stuff from the town. Now you lost $25,000 a year. Tax money going in the general fund. And they wanna do that with all open space and farmland. No, I'm heavily not for it. I'll tell you that right now. I just can't see us
That's what I'm
buying land and taking it away from all the other people that are paying taxes. That's me. So maybe other people got other ways to look at it, but not me. No, I just can't see it.
While I am well disposed towards CPA, I have said very, very publicly the things I expect to see before I will support it, and those have not happened yet. So if there were a motion, I would abstain. I would not say yes and I would not say no, because the fact that they haven't done it yet doesn't mean they won't.
I think we need to ask, who's driving it forward? Who's taking point on that?
The Agricultural Commission has
Commission.
fundamentally taken point.
Okay.
They've been doing all the presentations. Last night, there was a discussion at select board meeting about a liaison for town meeting who's not on the AgCom. But there is no single liaison appointed at that or selected at that meeting. So it's,
Do we have to take a vote if we wanna support the CPA?
Make the motion.
that's right.
I don't know if I don't have an answer. I don't know if I support it or not, cause I really haven't considered all the factors, I guess.
You wanna look at the stack of paper to get into it, to get out, and you can't get out once you get into it. The stack of paper, and if you don't believe me, go up to the assessor's office and get a copy of it.
I'm undecided. I'm on the fence. I don't know. Because it involves a tax increase and people don't have money. The people can't even afford to buy gas or pay their mortgages. You know what I'm saying?
So I want to try and expedite whatever's left on the agenda for lots of good reasons.
Me too. Let's go.
Does anyone have questions about CPA that I can quickly answer so you can most quickly make a decision, yes, no, or abstain?
Do we have to take a vote, or can we decide just not to decide if we want to write a letter of support? We decide no action.
That's also possible.
Okay, then
Because
I'll make,
But either way, we still need a motion in any event.
so I'll make a
Well, or
motion that
we
we
could
take
just-
no action.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Peter?
I got that, thank
I
you.
make a motion that we take no action. Polly needs a second.
Second.
Other discussion, roll call.
Santalucci, aye.
Williamson, aye.
Clock eye.
Delacroix, aye.
Keenan, I.
Dan's eye.
Brain abstain, like I promised I would do.
Peter.
We have a forest cutting plan for Noble Hill that actually looks, to my eyes, better than before. So I don't think we have any action to take on this other than saying, yep, there it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's better. Cause the lines have been verified, I suppose.
Yep.
Well, not by us, but yeah.
Right.
I hope.
By the forester. Yeah.
Looks great.
Dunkin' Donuts, Tamika, we're getting something next meeting?
Yep, so Dunkin' Donuts has officially submitted for a site plan modification with the Zoning Board of Appeals and a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. So I've scheduled the public hearing for April 16th. I spoke with the engineer today. He asked if the commission would like to do a site walk before that meeting. He is leaving town April 10th. I did mention that the board prefers to do it on Saturday mornings, and he was amenable to that. So I didn't know if anybody was interested in doing one perhaps this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Prior to that public hearing.
At the Dunkin' Donuts.
At Dunkin' Donuts at 255 Main
And
Street.
who's buying?
At the Dunkies or next door to it?
Jill.
Well, actually, I guess it's a change to both properties.
59
I want a
Main
midnight.
Street, I guess.
Medium midnight, please.
Midnight.
And I
good stuff.
also wanted to ask the commission if you would like the stormwater plan sent to Quinn Engineering for third-party review. We will be sending it anyways as part of the ZBA process, but I didn't know if you specifically wanted feedback for the notice of intent.
Yes, we would absolutely want feedback for the notice of intent. This is a commercial operation, so stormwater requirements are set.
Okay.
Especially, I mean, it's important that the applicant understand that they're gonna get a bill for this.
Yes, they do. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, does Quinn email them, to invoice them directly? Or do we have to set up like a 53G?
We've
peer
always
review?
done direct bill.
Okay, cool, that makes it easier.
So Duncan, 10 o'clock?
Yeah,
That's this Saturday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
April 6th, by my calendar anyway.
So do we have, any kind of plan?
Everything is on the SharePoint.
So it's going.
So it's under the April 16th folder, and it's also under the applications folder, so everything is there.
Okay.
And they've paid the fee and hearing notice and a butter notification and all that I've confirmed is taken care of. I got the certificate of mailing.
You're just awesome.
Gotta check
You
the
did
boxes.
everything.
Well, no, they did it, they're very professional and understood the process. They do this in many communities,
That's
so
awesome.
I just made sure it was all taken care of.
Good job.
Okay. Unless Melissa objects, I am going to skip over processes and procedures. And unless I
Please.
object, which I don't, I'm going to skip over bylaw because we are late and it's time to go to bed. So is there any other business before the commission?
Motion to adjourn?
second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Chancelucci, aye.
Williams, aye.
Clock eye.
Local act.
Keenan, I.
Danza, aye.
Crane, I, we're adjourned at 8:46 PM. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.